And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Paranormal Portal Wednesday live stream here on YouTube. And pretty quiet night, apparently. Not a lot of you have come in yet, but we'll keep going anyway, just because we love doing what we do. So hope you guys are good. Oh, it's Ken. Ken's here.
Ken's here. Hey, Ken.
The party can start now, brother. 4 minutes late. Ken's watching the clock, ladies and gentlemen. I've just gotten scolded, so... we weren't actually as late as you might think. Actually, I started the pre-roll for the show and forgot to turn the video from private to public. So that's why it looks like we came in late, but we actually started at right on the nose, 7 o'clock. I just didn't realize it was private for another minute and a half or so. So I don't know. But then again, there you go, Ken. But glad you guys are here. Whoever's here, there's 4 of you here, so it's growing. It's almost viral, like a flu or something. It's like a rash. It's just growing.
You don't need a shot. Not that kind of a shot, at least.
I need a shot about right before every show. I think I need a shot. Just pound them down, ladies and gentlemen. But hope you guys are doing great. Welcome to the Wednesday live stream of the show, and this is our Don and my opportunity to get back into the groove because the weekend to weekend gig was just too long. And honestly, I seriously missed doing this during the week. And it was like, what can we do? So we came up with this idea to do the portal midweek. And that's why we're here. And that's why it's only through YouTube at this point. But you may see on the screen, obviously, that there's a call-in live or dead. Nick's so awesome. The phone number, but that won't work tonight. So Wednesday live streams you cannot call in on. But Friday, Saturday, of course, you can. And speaking of Friday, Saturdays, just to put it back out there, ladies and gentlemen, this Friday and Saturday will be phenomenal shows. Of course, Friday night we will be joined by Deb Varner, psychic extraordinaire and official psychic of the Paranormal Portal. And she will be doing live call-in readings on Friday night. So definitely make sure you're here and available for that. And that'll be at 10 p.m. Pacific time through midnight. So mark your calendars, set your alarms, whatever you got to do. But don't miss it because she's a phenomenal person and really has done some real top-notch readings on the air. And again, I say this every time before she comes on is that a lot of people get tense about that, about calling in and having a reading done on the air, but she's very, very tasteful. She's not into embarrassing anybody or making them uncomfortable. It's just about helping. She just wants to help. And so she's not going to mention things that might be sensitive. She's not going to mention things that might be humiliating. She's not into making anybody look foolish. She just wants to help. So she's a really amazing person. I mean, she's like I don't know, that the sweet lady that lives next door that would just do anything for you. That's Deb in a nutshell. And she really is. She's done amazing things for the show, and she's appearing on the show has been an amazing boost for the Paranormal Portal, and she does it of the goodness of her heart. And that is, since she's on the East Coast, that's a much bigger sacrifice to make every week. Yep. Every time she's on, but she does it anyway. So she'll be here, ladies and gentlemen, and this will be on Friday night show. And then on Saturday, Jim Bear King will be joining us, and we'll be discussing all things Bigfoot, or as they call them in the South, the boogers. Wood boogers, catamount boogers, whatever you want to call them. That's or Bigfoot, or Yeti, or Olma, or Yowie, or Yaren, or the list goes on and on and on and on. But
big freaking cryptids.
Big hairy cryptids that are running around the forest lands, and sometimes not so forested. Sometimes they pop up in some of the most amazing places. People claim to have seen them, so they are out there, and I'm a firm believer in it. What's that?
Like on a UFO?
Oh, God. Yeah, no. We don't do that woo here.
Those are called Wookiees.
Yeah, that's right. That's called Star Wars. That ain't no Bigfoot. That's a Chewbacca.
That's a Chewbacca. That's a Chewbacca.
That's a Chewbacca right there, ladies and gentlemen. But, yeah, Jim, the Bear King, will be joining us here on the portal on Saturday night. And he will be on location. He's actually going to be calling in during a weekend outing in Mississippi where they're doing some research. So it should be really cool. But we'll see what that show will bring. It's a first for him to call in on location. So he's pretty pumped up about it, and we'll see what kind of, exactly. I mean, it's never been done before. So that I know of.
Jim King on a hunt.
Right. We'll be live with the bear while he's hunting.
That's cool.
So that is cool. That's really cool. And so that'll be coming up on Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. So don't miss it. I'm absolutely thrilled and excited to have that opportunity, and it's really cool. I mean, I've listened to Sasquatch Chronicles for years as well, and the bear has appeared on there many, many times. And one thing that I thought was really cool was that when Wes was first starting out, he talks about on his show how he had such a hard time getting anybody to appear, that nobody would go out of their way. Everybody would just ignore his requests and stuff. But then you get someone like Bear, who's, nationally recognized and known as as one of the authorities on the subject matter. And he's like, yeah, I'll be on. And so he did. And it really helped to set the Sasquatch Chronicles, put it on the map. And so, and again, the Paranormal Portal is not a huge program or anything, but he's coming out of his way to be a part of our experience as well. So that's really cool. And I'm really excited for that to happen. And, it certainly can't hurt none.
You can't hurt none at all.
All right. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that'll be the upcoming things that are coming up in the very, very near future. Yeah. So this weekend's going to be the premier weekend for a lot of exciting things on the portal. So again, Friday, Deb, Saturday, the bear. And both shows will be at 10 p.m. Pacific time, so don't miss them. Tonight, however, we are going to go into the far reaches of the universe. Tonight we're going to talk about alien encounters. And I know that the amount of people that believe in extraterrestrial existence or life it's over like 60%. So in many, many surveys or, polls that have been conducted, and whether or not you believe in polls, I guess it's up to you. But allegedly, over 60% of the population in the United States believes in the possibility of extraterrestrial life. That's not to say that over 60% of them believe that they're coming here. But that number is increasing all the time because so many credible witnesses have come forward through things like the disclosure hearings and through other avenues. And, some incredible witnesses from high-ranking military personnel to doctors to scientists to, a number of people that have, come out and said, look, I've seen these things. I don't know what they are. I can't say for sure, but they're here. And so, and then when you look at shows like Ancient Aliens, and you start getting into the idea that not only are they here, but they've been coming here for probably a long, long time. And I really do subscribe to that theory myself personally. I think that, when you're looking at societies in a bronze or Stone Age kind of setting, carving absolutely perfect several 100-ton granite blocks into puzzle piece perfection. That's with the tools at the time, which were like chisels of copper or something, or bronze or whatever,
Soft metals.
Right, soft metals. And so these were done with such precision and such perfection that even today, it would be a stretch of our technology to be able to accomplish these things. So I know there's a lot of people going way out of their way to try to disprove that. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the absolute amazing accomplishments that human beings have made in our history. But I don't think that it discredits the human achievement by saying that way back when someone was giving us a little hand.
Right.
So when you look at all the information out there, it's not too hard to believe that we've been visited for a long time, that we've been helped. You have things carved into ancient stone buildings that depict what look like astronauts, that there are ancient paintings that depict what look like UFOs, look like these saucer-shaped things in the sky or ball shapes. And, it's not just the fantastical wanderings of a modern culture that's been infiltrated by science fiction. These are, things that come from our very distant past. So whether you're on board with the theory or not, it's up to you. But there's at least enough potential evidence out there that you have to at least give it some credibility. in my opinion. Would you agree with that, Don?
I would. Yeah, absolutely. There's got to be some kind of credibility to it.
Oh, you know what? Let me get you on the screen.
What?
I'm almost did a bunch of me time.
Oh, gosh.
Sorry about that. And welcome to the show, by the way, brother. I'm sorry
hey.
I forgot to give you your normal introduction. But
That's all right. I'm not too worried about it.
I know.
But they can hear me in the back. I know.
We all can.
Yeah. So, but, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's got to be something somewhere that's, pulling strings or playing games or whatever that is, from a extraterrestrial point of view, or even an intraterrestrial point of view. There's got to be something there, and otherwise, we'd just be, our typical, God, the word went right out of my head.
Happens to me all the time.
Self-centered. That's not what I was meaning to say, but that comes out better.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an interesting point. I mean, is there a possibility they're here? Yeah. But they're not either visible to us. Are they multidimensional being? Are they traveling interstellar distances, or by traveling through dimensional gateways, is that the same as traveling interstellar distance from thousands of light years away? I don't know. There's a whole paradox of thinking lined up with this, that it's pretty impossible to know for sure. But then you get to the Hollow Earth theory, where people believe that there's these civilizations that live underground. Who was it? Was it the Hopi Indians?
The Hopis, yeah.
That had the ant people that lived underground, that helped them during a time of great drought.
Right.
They came out of ground with the advanced civilization and helped them and taught them. So it's possible. I don't pretend to know. And then there are so many tribes of people that have stated. I think it was was it the Midwestern tribes that said that they came from the stars?
Navajo.
The Navajo?
I think it was the Navajo.
Okay, yeah, and
because the two names that stick out the most are Navajo and Hopi.
Right.
And I know the Hopi claim that they came from inside the earth, which kind of, if I may, throws me into a thought of were they underground to protect them from the biblical floods?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point.
But yeah, and then the Navajo, yeah, I believe is the star peoples.
Right. And yeah, I mean that's very true, very very possible. And now I think there's also a correlation. And ladies and gentlemen, you can refer to this or research it or not, depending on what you want to do. But I believe that there's also a correlation between the name Anunnaki being in Sumeria and then also appearing in the Hopi the Hopi legends. I think also have a name that's almost identical for their people that came to help them. Have you heard of that, Don?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm kind of looking it up right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Because the Anunnaki, I believe, has a meaning. Maybe that's not the correct pronunciation at that point, but it does come out to be essentially star people or something to that effect.
Right, or something. Right. But yeah, so the similarity of not only being aided by this ancient culture or by this very advanced culture, but also the fact that they were so much more advanced. So were the Anunnaki not only over in Sumeria, and were they all over the place? Is it Sumeria? It's cuneiform tablets. Yeah,
cuneiform
Sumeria. Yes. So the plot thickens. So that's kind of the groundwork for the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's like, is it possible? Yeah. Well, I've got the benefit of having seen one of these things in real life, 3D, right in front of me. I have that experience under my belt, so I know that it's real. It's not a question for me, but I know it's a leap for other people, and I don't begrudge you that, because before I saw what I saw both times, I had an open mind. I didn't know for sure that they were here, but I believed that they probably could be, and that there was room enough in my belief system to accommodate that. Now, when I actually saw it, it was, it was still earth-shattering, but it was real. And so wherever you're at, and maybe most of you already are at that place, like, yeah, it could be real. Maybe it is real. I don't know. But I know that there's so many phenomenon in the paranormal universe going on that it seems like to believe all of them makes something wrong with you, but I don't think that's the case. I think that it's just that you understand that reality is so much more dynamic and that it's so much bigger than what we think. And so if the realities of our universe are indeed bigger and are more dynamic, then anything's possible. That's my 2 cents. So we're going to get into some stories of alien encounters, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, and we can see what you think. I don't know. Maybe you're on board with it. Maybe you're not. But in any case, it's definitely worthy of discussion, and it's definitely paranormal. So that's outstanding. Let me get this up here. I think Ken messaged me something here. I'm going to just take a chance to look. Yes, he did. Oh, that's okay, brother. All right, Ken, no worries. I got you. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, just had to refer to make sure I wasn't missing something. But let's get into some of these stories, and you guys can tell me what you think. And this is live and unrehearsed, by the way.
Usually. Definitely unrehearsed.
Yeah, sure. Definitely unrehearsed. In fact, before Don got here, I had no idea what we were doing tonight. Because I've been working really hard on a bunch of projects for the universe of the Paranormal Portal. But I was just like, Don got here, I'm like, what do you want to do? But that generally is our discussion. Isn't it, Don?
It pretty much is.
All right.
Brent, what are we doing tonight? Oh, I thought we'd, I don't know. Let's just do something.
I don't know. Let's just do something. Huh. Not that one. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to read some of these stories, and you guys can tell me what you think. All right. I was vacationing on Plum Island one summer, probably around 2012, 2013. My family noticed a star-like thing in the sky and decided to look at it through the telescope, since it was still light outside and seemed strange. This thing literally had tiny black spots crawling all over it, and it was only slightly moving. We thought it might be a planet, but the fact that something was crawling and moving all over it didn't make sense. My brother and Dad got in the car to try to get a closer look, and witnessed something from this object literally land into some bushes far away, and it was still glowing. All I know is that I've never had a valid explanation for what it was, and it was scary. And that is scary. Is that an actual encounter? Yeah, it is. I mean, when I say alien encounters, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't have to be you were sucked up into a ship and probed. So
stump broke. Brent's new term for today.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it wasn't that. It's not necessarily that. It can be just witnessing it. It can be witnessing either craft or phenomenon, or the alien beings themselves. And
being sucked through your window.
Yeah, not necessarily always sucked through the window.
What is it? Naked singularity and ectoplasmic goo. I made somebody's night. I said that one time. Somebody said, that was awesome. I'm glad you said something like that. I'm like,
What was it again?
That they were sucked through the window through naked singularity and ectoplasmic goo.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's combining paranormals.
That is, absolutely. Ectoplasmic goo. About 2 years ago, I was in Naples, Florida with my friend staying at his dad's place. We were on the porch having a smoke around 11 p.m. I was leaning on the railing when suddenly what I thought was a plane in the distance turned towards us. It was flying so low that the front lights blinded us. My friend scrambled for his phone, which turned out to be dead, and I, fearing I would miss it, didn't want to run inside and grab my phone. Though this craft was steadily gliding, all this happened so fast. As the object got closer, we noticed it was a huge triangle, almost venti black, and had 3 huge circular lights on the bottom. It was so close, just above the trees right in front of the building. Wow. It was also silent. The only thing making a sound was the trees rustling below from the craft. Then the huge black triangle turned on a dime right in front of us and disappeared over the tops of the buildings. I swear to God this happened. I wouldn't have believed what I saw if I didn't see it with someone else. Wow, that is really cool and amazing. Now, I know that a lot of people, Don, you can check my reasoning here, but I think I've heard it like when Duncan was on. He thought that all of the triangle craft were man-made. Is that right?
Yeah. Man-made, reverse engineered from possibly Roswell or other such things. That is correct.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting the name of the craft that's typically. Let me see if I can. I should know the name of it.
The SR-80 something or.
I can't remember.
I can't remember
Unfortunately.
either, but yeah, it's all those military type acronyms. I don't remember
Yeah.
anyway. That's my personal dyslexia is numbers and names. I can remember numbers sometimes, but names I never remember.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the type of craft it was that it's been termed.
Yeah,
But it's definitely is it the TR3B?
I
I
think
think it's
that's
the
right. Yeah,
TR3. Yeah.
I think that is right. Yeah, TR3B, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it could be.
Leave
Could
it to
very well
Dawn.
be.
I'll figure it.
Leave it to Dawn.
Uh-oh. Somebody smells some Anunnaki teriyaki going on.
What?
Sorry, it's a recipe and it's Lewis's fault this time.
Oh, Lewis. You're not going to recipe land here on the portal. This is not the Food Network, ladies and gentlemen.
So, yeah, the TR3B. Yeah.
TR3B. Okay.
There you go.
All right. Well, yeah. And so there's people that believe that any of the black triangular craft, even if they seem to have advanced engineering and aren't making a sound and doing impossible aerial maneuvers, they are still believed to be earthbound or
Right.
from the earth
Right.
in origin of us. And it's possible, I guess. I don't know. I mean, there was a saying when I used to be in IT, and the saying that I had heard was that basically just in terms of computers and processing power, the difference between civilian and military is whatever new computer you have at home, the military is using computers
10
that are
generations away.
like 30 years
Yeah.
more advanced than what you're using at home. And so even if you go by the most beefcake computer,
Right.
you're still using what would be, a paperweight in the military. And I don't
It's a
know.
brick.
I don't know if that's true or not, but when you think of things like, and what we even hear about, they can, they're so far ahead.
Right.
It's like they just, like in the Men in Black movie where they said that we just release patents every once in a while, like Velcro, to get money. And it's like, that's almost what's got to be going on in some of those black projects things is that they every once in a while, they'll let something just come down the consumer line, for whatever reason. But if we knew everything they knew, I'm sure we would probably already be Jetsons, I mean, really.
I don't want to be George. Please don't make me George. It's the TR3B is also called the Black Manta.
The Black Manta.
Black
Okay.
Manta. That's what I was trying to remember. Yeah.
Gotcha. Very interesting.
It's a good name.
It is
Good name.
cool name. I mean, they got to give them credit. They come up with cool names. But
It's better than Black Triangle.
Black Triangle. Yeah. Stay tuned for the Black Triangle.
Bum, bum.
Yeah. All right, and the next one. I was maybe 11 or 12, and we would always play hide and seek at night around the neighboring houses with friends. Breathe, Brent, breathe. It was crystal clear sky, and I was hiding in bushes up next to my friend's house when a black triangle,
There you go.
there you go, Don, with teal blue lights hovered slowly above me, much lower than an airplane. Hard to say how high, but it was almost gliding, and it was also more elongated, like a Star Destroyer shape from Star Wars.
Ooh.
Of course, I told my friends, but none of them believed me. Not really spoken about it much since. And it's very possible. I would have to wonder about the logic of doing that. So say for instance, it is a military product. Why would they be, why would they be showcasing it over populated areas?
Well, because they need you to have that disbelief or have a belief, and then other people have that disbelief that it actually happens. They've got to stir that pot. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely interesting, but I mean, it's hardly surprising. So that's my belief,
Right. And I'm sure these are black project things anyway, so they don't really go by the rules anyway. But I'm sure they're isolated from even the military's knowledge in most cases.
Well, it's an interesting thing. Do you know how the godfather of our genre, Art Bell, how he really became interested in aliens and aircraft?
Do tell.
Well, he was on his way back from, him and his wife were on his way, as I understand the story. Let me clarify that real quick. Him and his wife were on their way back from Vegas to their home in the desert. And that's where I'm going to leave that. But his wife, I guess, looked back and said, "What the heck is that?" And they stopped the car, they got out, and they looked up, and there was a black triangle with 3 lights coming up behind them.
Wow.
And he said there was no noise, no nothing, just nothing.
And
And it flew over them at about 150 feet, I believe he said,
wow.
and just kept going, and just nothing, no sound, no nothing, just a black triangle with 3 lights. And that started him on his journey to UFO land.
Wow. Now, do you know if he subscribes to the idea that those are military or?
Uh, Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Reverse engineer, just as I said, yeah.
Okay.
There is definitely that.
All right.
So.
Well, I'm just curious because I don't know. I know this theory is floating around. I just don't know how many people share this theory, or whether it's just a few people believe this is the case, or what the situation is. But yeah, very interesting. It's and that's of course a very profound experience. But yeah, I mean that's how he actually got his start.
That's how he got started into the UFO phenomena.
Okay, so he wasn't actually doing the coast to coast at that time?
No, he was doing coast to coast, but coast to coast kind of started off. The early incarnations were kind of more news related, that kind of thing, and then it kind of morphed because it was actually called West Coast AM, and then when he got syndicated, it became Coast to Coast, and then he started in on his paranormal journey from there.
Oh,
So,
okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. Huh? But he's always been into the bizarre.
The strange, definitely.
Okay.
His real passion actually is time travel.
Oh,
So that's his real passion. I'd really like to ask why, but I've never had an answer to that question yet. So,
sure.
but yeah. Anyhow, but that's how he got started in his journey through Neverland, shall we say? That's a good way to put it too.
Or maybe land. I don't know if it's called Neverland, but maybe land or
Well, you got to
possibility
remember,
land.
there's a lot. There was it was in Arizona. I think it was Dreamland. There was Dreamland and Neverland. There was a Neverland. UFO related.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay. I didn't know that. You're much more well versed on the UFO phenomenon than I am, Don.
Well, okay.
No, I mean, really, you are. And I'm plenty interested in it. It's just that
It's not your forte.
well, it is, but it's not. I mean, what's not is the research
Yeah.
of the old stories.
True.
I'm
yeah.
just more into what's going on now, and
I understand
that's
that.
both a hindrance as well as I mean, it certainly doesn't help me get a well-rounded knowledge base, and that's why I need you, because you can come in and fill in my blanks.
Well, okay. I'm glad to be here for you.
It's just the kind of symbiotic relationship we have.
Go.
All right. So, all right. Well, let's see. My family was at a hunting cabin in the boonies of Pennsylvania at a friend's wedding reception. The cabin was situated in a small clearing in the forest. It was pitch black out except for the bonfire. All of a sudden, all the woodsy sounds stopped. No crickets, no birds, no bullfrogs. The adults were all drunk and carrying on, but we kids noticed immediately. The night was suddenly silent except for the rustling of the treetops. I can't explain it, but something I couldn't really identify was coming over the treetops into a clearing, and it was moving slow, and it was big. It was way too slow and way too low to be a plane. It had 3 lights at the back, and we could just make out a massive triangular shape. It was black. It was a black that made the night sky above it seem lighter. It didn't make any noise at all, which freaked me out. I think there were 4 or 5 of us kids, and we had been playing a little ways away from the fire. Well, once we saw it, you'd better believe we hauled our tails to the adults, pointing to the sky and yelling. I was scared. The adults thought we were just being dramatic, but when my mom looked up, she saw it. Then everyone saw it. It couldn't have been more than 100 feet above the treetops, and the treetops were moving like a tornado was coming through, but on the ground it was really still. As we watched, it turned above the clearing and blasted out of view without a sound. As soon as it was gone, the crickets started chirping again. My family had planned to stay the night at the cabin, but we didn't. I must have been 9 or 10 at the time, but I've never forgotten it, or the way I felt seeing it. The whole thing lasted maybe a few minutes, but I had such a terrible feeling of dread in my stomach, I haven't ever felt fear like that since. My mom and I still talk about it sometimes. Scary stuff.
Did it say timeline, when it was, or just when he was a kid?
No, just she.
She, okay.
It was written by a woman, but No, it doesn't. It just says at a hunting cabin in the boonies of Pennsylvania at a wedding reception.
Huh. Okay.
So no idea what the time frame this happened in, but it's, it's certainly got to be pretty disheartening to look up and see a big craft like that. I mean, a huge mothership kind of thing, that would be even more shocking, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
Because there's a lot of whatever's in there.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's not just the...
It cracks it open like a piñata and they all just come falling out.
It's like, monkeys in a barrel. You open it up and they're just coming at you. Next one is, I met a guy while I was tripping on LSD. Here's a good one, ladies and gentlemen.
I think I've already thrown this one away.
Well, let's just see what he has to say since we're there. Met a guy while I was tripping on LSD who was working a snow cone stand.
Nice.
What's a perfect combination? He looked like a carnival worker and had the pentagram necklace and an Illuminati ring. Not joking. He must have sensed we were on something, so he proceeded to unload his crazy story on us. In the 70s or 80s, there was a big alien spotting epidemic for a few years, apparently. He saw a saucer hover above a radio tower and where he worked and claimed others were there to witness during the middle of the day as well. In addition, he had another sighting when cruising around with his then girlfriend very late at night. They followed it for half an hour through oil field roads, and finally saw it land in an open field. It flashed its light at them, so they flashed the headlights back. And then they both blinked and looked down, and it was exactly something like 3 hours later, and neither could recall exactly what had happened. He said he talked to the newspaper and somebody writing a book about alien encounters. I assumed that he was high on meth or coke or something and was just making up stories to account for his blacking out in the middle of a wild bender night. However, I went back home and Googled some of the bits of information, and it turns out he wasn't lying and actually believed this happened to him. Sure enough, he was in the local paper and was quoted in a book published long ago and told his abduction story there. I wish I remember all the details better, but it was so crazy and came at such a weird time that I didn't write anything down. Wow.
When you're tripping on LSD, there's not much you can actually write.
Yeah, exactly. Very strange. All right. The next one is around 9 p.m. walking through the local nature trail. There aren't many animals in this particular reserve. Excuse me. Common birds, squirrels, and the like. If you walk all the way into the deep woods, maybe a bear or two, but other than that, not much that you haven't already seen in your own backyard. So all of a sudden, there's this shrill scream. And at that point, I'm sort of getting scared because it's cold, it's dark, and there wouldn't be anyone out there at this time, and there are no animals that I know of that would make such a sound. On my right side, into the shrubs, there's this figure rustling in the underbrush. It's about 5 foot and crouching. Too dark to make out what it looked like, but it kept making these weird snorting noises. Could have been anything, really. I've seen all sorts of things in the woods, from teenagers smoking weed to a man in a full-body bee costume. But this just struck me as really weird and unexplained. Needless to say, I booked it the hell out of there. Number one reason why you don't walk around in murky woods at night. Mm-hmm. I agree. The woods are, I don't know. You have to always be careful anyway, just because you never know. But whether it's serial killers or freaky people or people in bee costumes, you just never know. Or that damn clown epidemic that was going on.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, jeez.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Strangeness.
People need to get beat sometimes. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, there should be a clause that if you catch someone being that big an idiot, they can be legally beat.
It's a legal beat down. Go for it.
Yeah, this one's okay. I'm good on paper.
It's on the books.
Yep, it's on the books. It's legal.
In Washington, there is a mutual combat law. As long as there's a cop there and they both agree on it, they can beat the crap out of each other until the cop tells them to stop.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's kind of a cool deal, though.
Yeah, but this superhero outbreak they had, people around and doing the hero thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they actually do that. There's actually a very documented case of a guy who was dressed as a superhero, and he was an MMA fighter, and he called somebody out right in front of a cop, and he said, yeah, and he beat the piss out of, I mean, the stuff out of him.
Wow.
And the cop just looked at him and said, do you quit? Guy eventually is like, yeah, because he didn't know the other guy was a MMA fighter.
Wow.
Duh. So yeah, mutual combat law in Washington, yeah.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're in Washington and you want to deliver a beat down, just grab a cop and make sure it's consensual.
Well, yeah, and if you can, preferably a one of these creepy clown kind of guys.
Yeah.
They need it.
Yeah. Well, it's just, wow, stupid.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of videos of those guys getting beat down.
They need it.
Yeah. People being like, oh, hell no. And then it's just not funny anymore.
Yeah, sure enough.
Well, there you have it. So we were hiking with friends, and my sister and I got separated from the group as we stopped to look at the night sky. It was a gorgeous summer night, very clear, and I remember being able to see the huge array of stars extending over the sky like a carefully crafted mantle made out of glitter. We stopped on a high rock, and when we turned around to continue our way up the trail, we saw this little person about 200 meters away from us. We stopped cold and didn't move for a while, when then the little person kind of waved and started walking with a high speed towards the forested part of the park.
Nice.
Away from the Rocky Mountain. I will never forget, and to this day, I avoid going hiking by myself or late at night. I couldn't sleep for a few days. This figure was thin, with long legs, and I mean his legs were too long for his body. And also, when it sort of waved, I noticed it had long fingers, too. It had normal-sized eyes and no mouth, or at least none we could see. Wow. That is weird. I don't know what they mean by little people, though.
There's all kinds of little people.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though,
Yeah.
because it doesn't sound like the normal kind of fae description.
Right.
And it doesn't sound like it had clothes on. I don't know.
Well, maybe it was more of a gnomish kind of thing.
Right. That's what I'm wondering. Or you know what? Yeah, weird. It kind of waved and then ran towards the woods.
It's like, I'm out of here, pals. See ya. Bye-bye.
That would be weird, though, wouldn't it?
It would.
Next one is I was driving down a road in the middle of the day, and there are fields on both sides. No other cars on the road. I saw what looked like a falling star. It was a big white ball of light with a tail, and it was hard to look at, even with sunglasses on. I had time to pull over and stop, still watching it fall straight down. This thing was going way faster than it should have, and so I was struggling to get my phone out of my pocket without taking my eyes off of it. Here's where it gets weird. Without warning, when it reached about eye level, it leveled off. I watched this thing go from vertical to horizontal in less than a second. It disappeared behind a line of trees, and I noped out of there. I noped out. Yeah, that would be pretty crazy. I mean, at least it didn't like level off and come get them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing if they level off and go somewhere else. It's like, wow, it went somewhere else. If it's leveling off and come in your direction, that would be a scraper right there.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's the underwear scraper. I was coming home. What? Sorry?
Oh, no, all good.
Oh,
Keep
okay.
going. You were coming home.
No,
they were
the
coming
story was coming home.
Nice.
I was coming home one night from work at about 2 a.m. I approached a church that I passed every single day. The first weird thing I noticed was a radio tower-esque light hovering above it. It was red and was blinking in an unusual manner. Most radio towers have an alert light that has some kind of pattern to it, and this one was just going nuts. Next thing I noticed was that all of the streetlights in the parking lot were out. This place has very well-lit parking lot and was completely black. I pulled up to it and immediately hit the brakes. Hovering about 200 feet above the steeple was a long airship with these weird vents protruding off the sides. The vents seemed to be spotlights that was illuminating the churchyard and some of the street. It made no noise. It just hovered there, like a weird balloon, perfectly silent. It even drifted slightly to one side, and I was in shock. I remember sitting there going, what the hell is that? I've seen blimps, helicopters, planes. It was none of these. After watching it in shock for what seemed like 20 minutes, but it was probably just a few seconds, it shot off like 0 to 100 in mere milliseconds. I tried to follow it, but in moments it was a speck, and then it was gone. I told my friends about it, but of course, it was one of those, sure, conversations, like, obviously they don't believe me.
No.
I'm not into alien conspiracies, nor am I a sky watcher. Had I not seen it with my own eyes, stone sober with the closeness that I did, I wouldn't believe it either. I kicked myself for not taking a photo, but my phone at the time was a BlackBerry with a 3-megapixel camera, so it would have just looked like a black blob. Very true. Very true. The next one is I was listening to the local radio when all of a sudden it cuts out. Not sure if this is a coincidence or not, but it creeped me out. The static radio sound was left in the background. I got really scared of this stuff, so I thought I'd get my dad to come out and fix the radio. However, I got up and gazed out the window, only to see all the streetlights were off. Most of the streetlights tend to turn off by 3 a.m., which is why this is extra weird. I look up into the sky, and I see 2 red and blue lines in the sky, standing completely still, motionless in the sky. My first thought was a military aircraft or something. I was an 8-year-old who was obsessed with planes and UFOs, etc. But what convinced me that they were something more is the fact that they started circling each other and eventually blasted off crazy fast into the sky. And I'm talking mad fast, like the speed of light. They just turned into blurs. I might have been seeing things, but as soon as they had left, the radio came back into tune, the streetlights turned back on, and I could now hear all the cars in the distance. And the wind. When the UFOs were above my street, everything was silent.
Huh.
That's bizarre. So, Don, do you want to read a few?
Sure.
I'm going to leave you the floor as I run and do the thing.
Do the thing.
It's all you, brother.
It's all me.
We're on 100% Don Cam.
Boo, boo. Oh, I'm scared. Oh, boy.
In full beard vision.
In beard vision.
This is brought to you in full beard vision.
All right. So let's see here. I had a couple. Let me grab them up here. Where'd they go? Ah, here we go. All right. So a couple short ones here. And the first one, that's kind of an interesting one. All right, here we go. 8 amazing stories from people who have met aliens. All right. Number 8, give us a wave. Reddit user describes an encounter in the middle of the night with a cheery alien who just seems to want to let us know they're there. Not have, but let us know they're there. This is how he describes it. I was sleeping in my room, which I like to keep dark as possible. I suddenly woke up to the sound of a loud pop, like a small firecracker, and I looked out into the dark and thought, oh, geez. Was that the electrical outlet for my computer frying? I looked towards it, but saw nothing. I figured it was nothing, so I rolled over to go back to sleep. I was very calm, but pretty shaken. What? I was very calm, but pretty awake because of the little fire scare. I took a deep breath and tried to hush away the small bits of adrenaline, and just as I was about to close my eyes, I saw a dark shadow above me. It seemed to be waving. And I kind of felt like it was just trying to get my attention. It straightened away from me and then leaned and pressed down on the edge of my bed closer to my head. It did this 2 or 3 times, and I could very clearly feel the weight. And I got the feeling that he wanted to show me something, that yes, I'm really here. This is how he describes the alien's appearance. It was outlined in light of many colors, but it was also very faint. Greens, yellows, blues, reds, purples, all swirled together simultaneously, mixed together, yet very separate somehow. The brightness I could relate to a glow-in-the-dark star sticker. Bright enough to see very clearly, but not so bright as to make me squint. He looked a bit like a reptile, sort of akin to a raptor, but with a larger, rounder skull, a strong brow ridge, and there was a circle-type bunches all over his body, which I assume were scales. His face was turned so that I could see a clear profile. It looked like he was wearing a loose, simple shirt of some kind, and held something like a clipboard in one arm, and the other was held up to it, as if you were writing on it. But what I was looking directly at, and what I remember most of all, was his eye. That large, unforgettable eye. Circular pupil that was open somewhat wide. Lightly colored iris. Most cartoony in how simple it looked compared to the rest of him. I guess it felt so warm and personable, but it looked like sad, maybe a bit stern. Some kind of alien research scientist, perhaps? That's kind of weird, especially with that kind of a cartoony look to him. Well, I suppose worse has happened. Why open the window? Let's go here, and this one's called Coping Strategy. Often alien encounters can be linked to some kind of traumatic event in a person's life. It could be that the trauma is too much for the mind to process, so it invents something to fill in the gaps. A Reddit user that has since deleted their account recalls their mother's story. When my mom and Lisa were teenagers, they were up on the roof of Lisa's house, and they could see a bright light in the sky. Next thing they knew, the light is gone. Thing is, they think they've been on the roof for like 15 minutes, but it was something more like 3 hours. So a couple of months later, Mom moves away and loses contact with Lisa for about 10 years. She finally meets up with her again and immediately notices that something is odd about Lisa. Lisa appeared very distant to her and very dreamy in demeanor, like she was really happy and at peace for no good reason. After they talked for a bit, Lisa brings up the incident on the roof. Op's mom doesn't remember the incident, but this is how Lisa recalls it. At first, they paralyzed her somehow and did all sorts of invasive experiments on her. But by the most recent time, they stopped probing her and began to talk with her. Apparently, they told her all sorts of things, stuff about space, Earth itself, and most shockingly, predicted years beforehand that she would get pregnant in a specific year and it would also be a stillborn, and that she would never be able to have children again. They also told her that it was not their fault, and they even made an attempt to save her from this fate, but they were unsuccessful. A psychologist might conclude that Lisa's experience with the aliens is her brain's way of rationalizing an incredibly traumatic experience, perhaps even prescribing meaning to it and helping her deal with it. Well, that's definitely one way to cope, but the question is did the psychologist in fact believe her in the first place? That's where my first question would be. How did that play out to the therapists themselves? Now here's an interesting one. This one's called Choke Slam. Interestingly enough, there's a picture of Darth Vader lifting up a commander anyhow. Choke Slam. Some stories can be so utterly terrifying and bizarre that they defy explanation. But there are some clues in the following story from this user that seem to indicate what happened. I find myself waking up to the oddest buzzing noise. It was distinct and had a sort of percussive rhythm to it, kind of like when your ears pop, but repetitive, so it's very uncomfortable. As I started to wipe the sleep from my eyes, I realized I was sitting up and all the lights are on in the surrounding rooms and the TV has turned to white noise. I look around the room and start to get an uneasy feeling that I'm being watched. I shrug it off and start to get up to go to the bathroom and turn the lights off. As soon as I stand up, I feel a cold hand wrap around my throat. Then it picks me up and slams me back down on the couch. I start to freak because I don't see anything there, and whatever it must be, it's massive because its hands wrapped around my entire neck, and I can feel its digits meeting at the back of my neck. So I go to stand up again, and once again it wraps its hand around my throat and pins me down on the couch, holding me there for a few seconds. I start to think, should I fight back or scream, or what should I do? Almost as quickly as the thoughts enter my head, I hear a voice saying, "Don't touch it. It'll leave if you don't touch it." So I put my hands up, relax myself, and the hands let go. As freaky as this sounds, most of the scariest elements actually add up to some common sleep phenomena, specifically sleep paralysis and lucid dreaming. The buzzing noise and sensation of being grabbed or held are particularly indicative, that's funny. Buzzing, sometimes known as exploding head syndrome, which is no less disturbing, is a common observation of lucid dreamers, and the sensation of being held down is a symptom of sleep paralysis, during which the mind wakes but the body doesn't, so the rationalizes its inability by imagining being restrained. Now, I actually looked up, and I turned it out. I didn't turn it out. I turned it out. Shut it down. But I looked up sleep, explosive head. Let me do that real quick. Explosive, because that's an interesting head syndrome. That was interesting. Let me find that again real quick.
Everybody likes a good exploding head.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go here. But it was interesting.
Do you remember that movie, Scanners?
Oh, of course I did, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's also called episodic cranial sensory shock. It's a benign condition in which a person hears a loud imagined noise, such as a bomb exploding, a gunshot, or a cymbal crash. So remember he said he heard the popping of a firework or a firecracker, or experiences an explosive feeling when falling asleep or waking up. So he also talked about the buzzing, the rhythmic buzzing. So exploding head syndrome or episodic cranial sensory shock. That's kind of a dissociative disorder. Yeah, that's kind of that would be a disconcerting kind of thing.
It would be, yeah. Very strange.
Absolutely. So how are you, Mr. Brent?
I'm back, which is always good.
Yes, sir.
I am always good and glad to be here, of course. Thanks for taking the floor and covering that for me.
I stuttered all the way through it. It's okay.
This is, you did good. You did just fine. Nah, don't worry about it. It's just our show. What do you do?
Yeah, well, you just sit back and let it ride.
Y'all can just deal with it, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, there he is.
Yes, indeed. Here we are. So continuing on, we have more stories, and I was just trying to catch up on the chat a little bit while Don was reading, and so I'm just seeing what you guys talk about because I can't look much. I can't really see what's going on. When I'm reading, of course, I can't read something else, so it's nice to just stop and try to see what the hell everybody's talking about. Mm-hmm. What are they saying? What are they saying? The next story is, okay, starting off, I'd just like to say I don't believe in this stuff, and I'm a logical person. So I don't, You know what I'd have to say is what the hell about not believing in extraterrestrial possibilities or aliens or UFOs makes you logical? And how come it's so illogical to believe that a nearly or completely infinite universe with infinite worlds, with infinite possibilities, could not produce intelligent beings that could travel at will throughout that? I mean, how is that illogical? I don't know. So I always take those kind of things as was like, oh man, it really kind of salts me, It's like, I'm logical. Well then, what's going on? So let's just see what he has to say now. So I don't actually think it was an alien encounter. And I don't claim that it happened as I remember, but it felt really real. And afterwards I was sure it had actually happened. And it did make me wonder a bit afterwards, what if? This is a few years ago, and I was a teen/young adult. I remember laying on the couch reading as I was about to drift off, I was awakened again by these really bright lights. They hurt my eyes, and it was really hard to see anything. I felt really panicky, and this kind of light/floaty feeling, like I was falling and never hitting the ground. That kind of was like me, Don, on that Wednesday show, January 31st. That's kind of what I felt like. I felt like I was falling. But I remember lying down and I couldn't move. What I remember best was the very cold and move or get something warm that I couldn't do anything about. My body hurt, mostly my legs, like someone had stuck a knife into them, or like they had been removed. Oh. There were shapes around me, not quite human, and long like shadows stretching up the wall, but I couldn't get a good look at them. But they were watching me, and I knew they weren't human. I don't remember any sounds or many specifics. I just remember it being really uncomfortable and terrified. And the pain in my legs, it went on for an uncomfortably long time, and I just couldn't move or wake up or anything. I just laid there feeling watched and my legs hurting a lot. I woke up on the sofa, and that's it. Some people would probably call it an alien abduction, but I think it was probably just night terrors or sleep paralysis. It was terrifying, whatever it was. And I don't envy people that have regular sleep paralysis. Well, I don't know. I've had sleep paralysis, and it wasn't like that.
You know, I think I have too.
Yeah?
I think I've experienced that particular, shall we say, phenomena.
Of sleep paralysis?
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, waking up but not really being your body.
Yeah.
You know, your brain's awake but your body's not. I think I've experienced that a time or two.
It's horrible. I really hate it.
I don't remember it being horrible.
Right. Well, really. I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't a panicky feeling for you?
No, I don't think so. Because
Okay.
and another thing is it was connected with my flying dreams.
Oh. Well,
So that was those flying dreams are my favorite ones.
yeah, they are.
Those
Those are cool. And
love mine.
you ever have those dreams where this just happened to me the other night? I was laying down and I was falling asleep. So I was asleep enough to begin dreaming, but my back itched so bad,
Yeah.
and I kept scratching it in my dream, and,
Right.
and it was like, God, it still itches so bad. It's it's like I can't rationalize why the hell isn't that itch going away? What the hell's going on?
Right.
And then I realized that I'm actually not awake scratching it. I'm just dreaming of scratching it.
Right.
Oh, that sucks. That
Well,
was just the worst.
You know, and as I understand it, you know, you can induce lucid dreaming by just lying still and quieting your mind, but your body tries to get you to move, you know, to keep you connected. But if you refuse to move, like, you know, your arm may be a little fatigued, but it's not really hurting, or you know, even twitching is your body's way of bringing you back.
Oh.
But like an itch, like you know, you scratch your nose real quick, or you rub your eyebrow, or you know, you rub your eye. You try to not do those things, and supposedly that's one way to start inducing lucid dreaming itself. So your disconnection from the body. That's what I understand.
Yeah, I think so. I think that there are lots of theories like that of how to induce that lucid dreaming. There's even you can apparently get like self-hypnosis to induce lucid dreaming. If you look on YouTube,
Theta waves.
oh yeah, the theta waves. That's right. That's what they are. But if you look on YouTube, there's about 1,001 different lucid dreaming.
Jeff Bridges has a Jeff Bridges has a thing out for his lucid dreaming.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow.
The dude.
The dude. Yeah. Wow. Isn't he the Lebowski, the big Lebowski?
Yeah, that's the dude. Yeah, that's him.
He sucked an Iron Man. I hated that guy. What was his name? Stain?
I don't remember.
Something Stain.
I don't remember seeing him, actually.
In the first Iron Man movie?
I don't remember.
He was the
seeing him.
bald guy that took over the Stark Enterprises, or tried to. Do you remember seeing the first Iron Man movie?
Actually, no. Now that you mention it, I know I have.
Oh, you haven't?
I have.
Oh.
I have seen it. I just don't
Okay.
remember.
So he was the guy that was running the company in Tony's absence while he was kidnapped in the desert and had to free himself.
Yeah, when he was over in
Jebediah
Afghanistan.
Stain. Yeah, yes.
Right.
So
And
the
he-
bald guy was
Oh,
him. Yeah.
I have a vague memory. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah. He is horrible. He was horrible. He was a bad guy in that one. So,
Okay.
you know. I don't know. I'm just reflecting.
But that's what I remember about lucid dreaming and how to induce lucid dreaming.
That's really cool. And I agree that, I've had several dreams in the course of my life where I could fly. And they were very lucid, and I could make choices and
Right.
and would just be zipping all over the place. And they were actually the kind of dreams that, I mean, they were real. It was really happening. It was as real as, I'm sitting here talking to you. It was just that vibrant and alive.
Right,
But
yeah.
but I remember at one of the most profound ones that I ever had, I realized, oh, I'm dreaming. Oh, and it was such a disappointment.
Yeah, yeah.
Or I did wake up later, and then I realized that I couldn't really fly anymore. And it was like, oh man,
Yeah.
that sucks, because I just thought, well, this is what I am now. I can fly. And I was younger at this time, but I was really disappointed when I found out that I still couldn't,
Right.
or didn't remember how.
Yeah,
Not
I'm
that
right
I
there
believe
with
those.
you, yeah.
It's not that I don't believe it's possible, because I think that we have unlimited potential within us. If people can move objects with their mind, why couldn't we move our own body mass? There's no
Right.
reason why we couldn't.
Right.
Not that there are so many profound telekinetics out there, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
So I think that,
It's definitely a disappointment.
It is a disappointment. But anyway, it's not alien in nature, but it's definitely a disappointment. So the next one is, I was doing wildlife research in a remote part of West Virginia that required us to be out late at night. Saw two lights in the sky that danced around in an unexplainable fashion to anything I've ever seen. I'm a rational person, so my hypothesis would be military testing due to where we were. Close enough to DC, but remote enough that there are a lot of secret bases, etc. out there. Nothing fancy, just something I couldn't explain. Witnessed it with another colleague.
Colleague? That's a professional word.
Well, it said they were doing wildlife research, so
Oh, yeah.
they have colleagues when you're researching. So, Don, you're my colleague then?
Yeah, well,
we are
I
colleagues.
would be, yes, absolutely.
We are colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. We are just that professional.
I like who wrote that story. It was Kid Zombie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's professional. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so my friends and I were hanging out at a park at night, just talking and hanging out. I look up into the sky and look at the brightest star, which there aren't many because we're in Boston/Cambridge, when I see this really faint red/purple looking object circling the star. I'm like freaking out because at the same time thinking, I must be seeing things. I tell my friend to look up and he also sees the faint object circling the star. At first I'm thinking if it's somehow possible, it's space junk reflecting light, but the object then starts moving in random directions around the star. So I realize that it can't be space junk. To this day, I'm curious of what it could have been. I was freaked out, yet excited at the same time. I don't know how much space junk you can see with your eyes.
Yeah, no, it would be way too far away, even if it was being reflective.
Right.
Because, most of our space junk isn't that big.
No, it's all just shrapnel, basically, from things that went wrong.
Right.
There aren't like space station-sized chunks floating out there. And most of it's in a degrading orbit anyway, where it's going to, get pulled back in if it's that big. Right?
Yep, absolutely.
I think so, ladies and gentlemen, and that's the version we're going with here on the portal, where I'm an expert because I have a microphone.
And because we've read.
Because I read stuff this one time, and of course, off the internet. Hello. It's all true. Everything.
Yeah, it must be. It was on the internet.
It was on the internet. Hello.
Which we know was created by Gore. So,
By who? What? Gore.
Al Gore.
Yeah, Al Gore. Oh, my God.
No. Anyhow.
There's a few people in the world that really deserve the title douche, and he is one of them.
Can it please be a disposable one?
I wish. He's just one of those slimy guys that just, I don't know, just having his own me party all the time, and it's just gross.
It's a party.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I don't ever, and I'm not trying to be political. I don't care what your political leanings are, left, right, middle, whatever. I tend to be more middle. I have some very left-leaning views, and I have some very right-leaning views, so I don't usually invest too heavily one side or the other, but sometimes you get a guy like that just rears his head, and it's just like, you just feel like you got to hose off after you see anything to do with them. So,
oh boy.
Anyway, witnessed an alien abduction back in 2001.
Oh, nice.
This takes place when I was 13. A friend of mine wanted me to help her grandparents set up their computer. This is a repeat. We've read this one. I'm sure it is, but I'll read it anyway, ladies and gentlemen. I said sure and rode my bicycle to their house. I get there and clouds appear, so I decide to make this pretty quick. I set up the computer and install AOL for them, showing them all how it works and such, and then they go back and sit on the couch while I get my backpack to get ready to leave, as their other granddaughter, who was about 4 to 6 years old, I can't remember which, was sleeping in the other room. All of a sudden, a cold breeze went through the room. It was odd as all the doors and windows were shut. The grandparents looked toward the kitchen, and what I saw made me freeze in place. There were 3 creatures standing up in the kitchen. 2 of them were short gray creatures with thicker neck than described with the eyes closer to the sides of their head. They wore silver jumpsuits. In between them was a taller creature looking like a humanoid mantis, wearing a black robe with a yellow stripe down the middle. They walked to another room, and a minute later returned with the robed creature carrying the granddaughter in its arms. It's looking at me, and I get the feeling it knows who I am. I don't know why I got that feeling, but I did. I was very scared. More of the situation than of them, and the grandparents were looking at them too, but not doing anything rather. I decided to say screw this and fought off all the fear I could and clumsily charged towards them. I didn't even make 3 steps before the grandfather stopped me and told me they will bring her back. Yeah, even though we've read this before, it's still really, really weird. These creatures didn't move and continued to look at me. I couldn't get any more words out of my throat because I didn't even know what to think at this point. All of a sudden, the light stretched around them and they vanished. An odd glow remained for a few seconds before fading. After a minute of awkward silence, the grandfather repeating that she will be brought back soon, I decided to leave. I rode my bicycle back home as fast as I could while looking back to see if some ship was hiding in the clouds. Nothing was there, and I didn't sleep that night when I got home. The next day I did tell my friend what happened, and she did tell me it has happened before. The grandparents and other family members have tried to stop it, but to no avail. They just accepted it with a look of defeat and moved on. Oh my God. Could you just sit there and watch something carry a family member away?
No, and that's part of what blows me away. It's like, no, this happens like every other week, and it's okay, don't worry. But
it's okay, they're just doing her nails.
Yeah,
she'll be right back.
They're taking her out for a manicure.
Yeah, wow, it's mani-pedi night. She'll be back. It's like, what the hell?
It was the 13-year-old grandchild, is that right?
6 or 6-year-old.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's a child. And it's like, oh no, hell no.
Well, okay, I won't go there because it has to do with that whole pedophile thing, but, or at least, the child abduction thing, because, they say that that's how they man that's how it's been inferred that the SSP has been manned in certain ways. They abducted children and then
kept them. Yeah,
could brainwashed them into.
Could be. I don't. Thing, that's a whole different level of creepy.
Yeah, that's true.
More a Kev Baker show than the Paranormal Portal.
No, that's true too. Yeah.
No offense. I mean, it's just one of those that requires a hell of a lot of research and I mean, there's allegations like that all over the place, and those are, I don't dismiss that they could be possible.
Right.
I just don't know, and it's one of those things that once you start going down that rabbit hole,
oh God, yeah, it never ends.
It just never ends. It just gets uglier and more weird and stupid, and you just can't unsee, you can't unhear, you can't unread things. It's just, in this case, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, if you think of it that way.
Well, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, I'm not saying that if it is happening, that it's right. Of course it's not. But if it
but that gets out of the realm of the paranormal and more into conspiratorial
stuff, yeah. And that's really why it's not, as much for this show. And I appreciate you bringing it up, and I think that's important, but I just don't know what to say about things like that.
Well, it was just a thought about why they would be abducting children like that.
Well, there's, of course, abductees are claimed to happen in family lines, in bloodlines. Generation after generation after generation, and perhaps the grandparents had already gone through this, or one of the other. The paternal or maternal side had dealt with this forever. Right. I don't know, and maybe that's how you get resigned to it. It's like, I went through that. It's fine.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I must be a mudblood then, because God, I've never experienced something like that
that you know of.
Well, why don't you just get somatic up on me?
No, I'm with you. I've never experienced anything like that either.
I mean, but I haven't had your experiences either. So, I mean.
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that I've seen a ship a couple of times.
Right.
And so I don't know. Like as Duncan was saying, once you see it, it's easier to see it again because it's like they're letting you see them.
Right.
And that's a possibility. I mean, I believe these beings are incredibly intelligent and they know a hell of a lot more than I do. So, maybe they just thought they'd throw me a bone and that was cool. But I'm okay with that being the entirety of my experience as well.
Exactly,
It's like, I saw you. I know you're there. Thanks a bunch. I'm good with it now. I don't need to see the mothership unless, unless you're going to take me someplace better. Where I don't have bills. Okay.
Yeah.
That's maybe it'll work out. We could discuss it, but I don't know. Very strange.
Will work for alien abduction.
Will work for debt free. All right, the next one. I don't know if it was aliens, but when I was 12, I was out in the woods behind my parents' house. I saw 2 large silver discs fly across the sky, low enough to the ground that I could tell they were both close to the size of a house. They flew off out of sight, and I never really could explain it. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know of any military discs that are house-sized that are flying around, so it's probably a good bet that it was alien. Right?
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, I don't know what else. The typical pie plates.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's what I saw. The discs.
Dawn just snuck into she's under VDP Gazette.
What?
Hi, Dawn. Sneaker.
Oh.
She's sneaker.
Dawn. Hey.
Sneak? I don't sneak.
I will be a love slave.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I don't know. I think they're looking for attractive qualities in their love slaves, and I'm pretty sure I don't meet the love slave criteria so far.
Strong, silent type.
Yeah, seasonally bloated.
A love slave to the aliens.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah.
Dawn, thank you for the giggle.
Yeah, thanks a bunch.
East City Ranch, yeah. That's
right.
Yeah. So, wow.
All right, and the next one is, this happened 2.5 years ago. Well, that's quite a while. It was in my room. I was in my room staying up at around 2 a.m. doodling and just avoiding sleep as I had been for around 3 days. Bad sleep deprivation, I know. But before I get too far into my story, let me tell you that I have always had a kind of super irrational paranoia at night. So whenever I was doodling, I look at my 80s TV in my room and see my closet door opening with a hand sticking out. I can assure you I freaked the hell out. I try to ignore it and tell myself I am dreaming, but then I look outside of my window to see some sort of triangle above my house with extremely powerful flashing lights. I see another movement on my TV screen, so I decide to book it into the master bedroom downstairs and hide under the gigantic covers. I slowly peek out and see 4 different figures surrounding the giant queen-size bed, and then I see the power flicker out on the monitor on my desk. I see the figure in the dark reach down and touch my head. I pass out and start having really vivid dreams that I knew were dreams, like I could feel that they were fake and that I needed to wake up. But every time I did, I woke up to a kind of surgical light and a very scary sensation I now know to be sleep paralysis.
Right.
Every time I would go back to sleep, I would feel some sort of tingling sensation in my legs, arms, and head. After a few times of waking up to the light, I woke back up into the bedroom with the figure standing over me whispering in a rough, scratchy voice about something. The one closest to me touched my head, and I semi-pass out again with the sensation of sleep paralysis, freezing me into a fearful kind of passing out. I wake up the next morning, my clothes completely drenched in sweat, and something super sticky. I was afraid to sleep for about 2 years. I have barely slept without sleep paralysis until a few months ago. I have always kept this to myself. I now am afraid of being alone. My paranoia is heightened, and sleep is very hard to come by. I also have a long scar-like marks on my legs, head, and arms where I had felt the sort of feeling you get when you are being numbed and cut into, a.k.a. the tingly feeling.
Ugh.
Ooh, right.
Ugh.
That's too bad. Not good. Next one. Are you ready for another one, Don?
Sure. Yes.
Want to hear it? Here it goes. And we got a pretty good crowd here tonight. That's good.
15, yeah. Absolutely.
Who do we have in here, by the
Well,
way?
we got Ken and Pixie. Pixie's here after a 2-week hiatus or something. We got Lewis and Lady Death. We got Dawn, as we've talked about. We got T-Fetch. Hey, T-Fetch, what's happening? Of course, you got Ken. Did I say that already, Lewis? You know what? There was another. Who else? Lady Death. Well, that's all that's chatting that I can remember off the top of my head.
Well, whoever's here, we love you bunches, and thanks for being here. And thanks for supporting what we're doing. And we will continue to do our best to entertain you.
Oh, and I forgot D-Swigger. Sorry.
Oh, nice.
D's
Okay.
here, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, everybody welcome, and thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of the Paranormal Portal.
Oh, and by the way,
Yeah?
just to let you know, somebody thinks that we're like in our 30s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I just told him thank you.
Outstanding.
I told him it's just our general demeanor.
It's all the lighting.
Yes, it makes
It's
us
all in the cameras and lighting, ladies. It's
20
that movie
20 years
magic.
younger.
20. 10, maybe.
We're hoping.
10 years younger, maybe.
We only act like children.
I might be old, but I'm really immature, so it all works out.
It's a balance.
It all works out. All right. But no, I wish I looked 30s. Wow. But thank you. I appreciate that. Whoever said that, thank you so much. I now love you. When I was 17, I was a bit of a screw off, and my parents sent me to one of those attitude adjustment type camps in Utah. Oh my God. This place was in the middle of nowhere, and we spent 45 days hiking through the wilderness. Near the end of our time there, everyone was supposed to go in a vision quest, where we fasted for 3 days alone in the woods in a designated spot. Though I did sneak my personal can of peanut butter and a bag of crackers with me, so I had enough to eat. On the second night, I saw a UFO. It was triangle-shaped, with a bright light on each corner. It would zip around the sky, traveling at what must have been 50 miles in a fraction of a second. For a while, I watched it zip around in utter fascination, not believing what I was seeing. Then I did something stupid. I yelled at it. I told the ship I could see it, and it heard me.
Oh, boy.
Wow. Oh, that's funny. Excuse me. It's hard to describe, but the beings in the ship made a sort of telepathic connection with me. It didn't talk to me per se. It more just communicated the message like I just knew that what they were saying to me. And man, these beings were evil. They told me that they were going to take me up in their ship, and when I told them that I just wanted to say hello but didn't actually want to go with them, they said it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
You don't have a choice.
Yeah. At this point, I'm terrified. I know they know that something truly awful is going to happen to me. I started scrambling for something to do, so I started yelling the Lord's Prayer of all things. That gave them some hesitation, so I kept yelling. At this point, the ship was probably 400 yards above me, and then they told me it wasn't over and they'd be back. Absolutely terrifying. I'm not sure whether they ever came back. A couple of years later, I woke up to being grabbing my ankles, trying to drag me out of my apartment. But I was frozen with fear and couldn't fight back. It might have been sleep paralysis for all I know, but that's another story. I don't ever talk about that night, but I know what I saw in those Utah mountains. I tried telling people, a couple of people when I got home, but they all said all they said was that I must have been hallucinating from the lack of food, which I doubt, or that I was imagining things. After a few people started saying, "Hey, zippity zop, tell everyone about that time you saw aliens." At social gatherings, I stopped talking about it entirely. But they weren't there, and they didn't see or experience what I did.
Right.
I'm a pretty normal guy now. I've got an office job and lead a nice, boring life. But yeah, I've seen a UFO.
Yeah, apparently so.
Absolutely. Welcome to the club. Like there's an official handshake.
Yeah, exactly. Well, why not?
I don't even know what that is. It's like, is that I'm not being inappropriate, am I?
Yeah, don't do it again.
Oh, really?
Not on a live stream.
Oh, sorry.
But our crowd right now would find it funny. So
Oh.
if they even if they even noticed it
I did it right to the camera, so I'm sure it's noticed.
twice.
Sorry.
I just saw it.
I didn't know it meant anything. Really? It does? Is it really creepy?
It's just kind of one of those silly kid things that
okay.
has attached meaning. Like,
all right. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I just learned something new tonight here on the portal.
That's two things tonight.
I love learning. I'd rather learn before I do things, though. Can't have it all, ladies and gentlemen. A few weeks ago, I was working at a promo outside one of the bars in town. Pitch black sky, but cloudless. So the sky is black, and you can see some stars decently enough. My town isn't exactly massive. Typical Yorkshire town. Not all of them, so it's bright enough to make out objects in the sky, but dark enough that their shape is obscured. Standing there, holding the sign, fully sober, wide awake, never hallucinated, and no lights were there to cause sunspots in my eyes or any logical explanation. For some reason, I look up. I sometimes look up just to make sure the sign is still facing the right way. I usually hold it half-arsed and get paid to stand there doing nothing. There I see what was either one large craft or 4 smaller crafts. Basically, imagine a 4x4 row column. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 this way, 4 this way. And where 2 and 4 are, red light, and oh my God, he's getting really specific here. Where number 2 and 4 are, red lights, and 1 is in the front. The lights were quite bright themselves, but didn't attract attention from below. I was lucky to look up and see they all moved in uniform, and they seemed quite low down, so it was either 4 amazingly synced crafts or a single low craft. My guess would be the single low flying craft. The issue is town was dead. It was silence, save for the bouncers chatting with staff outside. You could hear cars a block away or two, not that there were any that night, but this thing that seemed to float over the buildings low down made no noise whatsoever. It wasn't lanterns. It wasn't affected by wind. The lights didn't light up anything above them, so they couldn't be seen through like there was nothing above them. It was as if a large craft flew over that was both silent and had the ability to blend in with the night. As the craft itself absorbed its light, so it gave the appearance of 4 floating lights. This was in the UK, and all the UFO and stealth plane stuff I've seen isn't quite the same, but I've only seen it that once. It went straight over the street and behind buildings where I couldn't see it anymore. Nobody said a thing, and the people here have neither the means nor brains to pull off a hoax like this, especially on a day that's dead like today, unlike today will be. Yeah, and they said, who knows? It's not exactly how he said it, but that's the version I'm reading you. The next.
Too many hillbilly slack jaws and podunks.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's in the UK, so there are not so many hillbillies there, but apparently it's more of a blue-collar kind of deal.
Yeah, okay. Drunk cowboys.
Yeah, UK cowboys. I don't know.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
United Kingdom, as it were. I used to live next to the beach in an apartment complex. One night I was with my friend looking at the ocean from the balcony. We couldn't see much as it was dark, but the light from the moon was enough for us to watch the waves on the shore. After a while, my friend told me it was so dark that if I stand over there, the only thing she could see are my teeth, and we started laughing. Seconds later, we see a light on the ocean, and it slowly comes out of the water.
Ooh.
What we saw was like a orb-shaped ball of light. It lighted so hard for a moment that I almost couldn't see it. It kept going up slowly and then suddenly flied fast to the sky at light speed, disappearing in the dark sky. Everything happens in like 8 seconds. We both were freak out and went inside the apartment. My mother and brother didn't believe us as expected. It was scary. It was scary. This is written really poorly, so I'm sorry, but I'm reading it as it's written. It was scary, but incredible experience. Years later, I saw a report on National Geographic about orb-shaped lights flying around forests in the USA. I knew it was the same thing I saw.
Huh, interesting.
Now, that would be a USO, right?
An underwater, submersible.
Unknown submersible object.
Yeah. You know what I find funny is everybody talks about how they flew away at light speed. If they flew away at light speed, would you see it?
No, you would not, because it would just blink and be gone.
It'd be gone. Yeah,
you wouldn't see motion of it moving. It would just be not there anymore.
Yep.
That is true.
Yep.
That's a good point.
Thank you. Now the speed of sound, that's different.
That's true. That's true.
You'll see all kinds of things at the speed of sound.
Yeah, exactly. But the USOs, of course, are
USOs,
really commonly reported. Apparently, there's other names for them, but I remember seeing Hillary interviewed somewhere, and she was talking. There's a new name for UFOs and USOs, but I don't know what the hell it was. Not that it mattered, but that was when she was campaigning to become president. And,
Yeah, they were talking about disclosure. Somebody asked them about
Right.
disclosure.
Yeah. And she was talking about the new names for it and how she was going to work towards disclosure.
Yeah.
But I don't know how
and
many.
inclusion and immigration and a
Everything,
dream.
everything was going to be beautiful, is all I know. That's what's said. But it's just the politics. I don't care either way. But it seems that it doesn't matter really a whole lot who's in the chair. The same groups of people seem to be making the decisions. So, just my 2 cents. But
I agree.
sorry, I'm a little gassy here. Sorry. Did you have something you wanted to read again, or?
Well, no, not necessarily.
Okay.
Just having an enjoyable time right now.
Well, good. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself, and I hope you
absolutely.
guys out there are enjoying yourself as well as we continue the journey into alien encounters here on the Paranormal Portal. And the one thing I like about the Wednesday streams is that we don't have to worry about breaks. I know during the Friday and Saturday when we're tied into the network, we always have to keep an eye on where's the break, when's it coming, what can we get into, what
Right.
can't we. So these Wednesday streams are nice just to have this open forum. And if you've got to, run it all down, just let me know and I'll switch to the
Oh no, I'm
100% Brent cam.
the Brent cam. I'll let you know if I need to, but I'm good to go, buddy.
Absolutely. Well, good to know. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, and we will continue. All right, sorry, I was just trying to read chat. I don't have my glasses on, and that, I got to get a different second monitor there because it's good and all, but it's really dinky to have so far away. Yeah, first world problems, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Painesville, Ohio, rewind to August 1996, 97, and a 12-year-old me, my 2 older brothers, and our neighbor friend are laying on the trampoline in the backyard after a summer night, just staring at the sky and talking, when the neighbor girl says, "Hey, what's that light?" Me, my oldest brother, and her saw what looked like a lime green, rounded diamond shaped, sort of like an egg, on its side, float in the sky. It had a foggy aura around it and left a short trail of mist / fog / smoke / exhaust behind it. But nothing lingered, just dissipated immediately and lasted for about 3 seconds, then disappeared totally and completely. It appeared without warning, no sound at any point, floated from left to right about the length of a house and lawn, and disappeared completely. I'd say it was about as big as your smartphone held at arm's length, but in the sky. It was low, too, at about 50 to 100 feet high. My middle brother is the only one who didn't see it due to his position on the trampoline. Like if you think of a compass and we were lying northeast, southwest, only northeast and south saw it. To this day, my brother and I maintain what we saw, and I've asked and looked everywhere for an explanation, and nothing. My dad claims it was a lightning ball. Oh, God. I call malarkey due to the lime green color and the slight smoky exhaust. I'd love to be proven wrong
Smoky exhaust.
and or have this explained still.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not really... the ball lightning is such a far-fetched idea anyway, because it's supposedly this natural weather phenomenon that nobody can explain.
Yeah, exactly. I have an issue with this story though, because it says that it was a huge thing, right?
Yeah.
And it was about the size of your cell phone, your smartphone, held up, right?
Yeah.
But it was only 50 to 100 feet away.
No, 50 to 100 feet from the ground.
From the ground, okay,
Right.
but that's not huge. That's not huge.
Well, how far?
Well, think about how big your cell phone is at arm's length,
Uh-huh.
and then make that 100 feet away. That's not that big. That's
No, not 100 feet away from them, just 100 feet off the ground level.
right. But the point is it's not that. Well, okay, so it was hovering over a mountain, 100 feet off the mountain. See, because if you hold your phone up, I don't care what phone you have, but if you hold your phone at arm's length, and that would cover the whatever it is 100 feet off the ground, it's not that big. It can only be maybe 15 or 20 feet around or big by the time it gets to the ground. See what I'm saying? Perspective. It's the perspective.
I understand what you're saying, but you could be dead on. I don't know. Maybe it was a lot smaller than what she thought, but
That's why I'm going with that.
yeah, I don't know. I certainly didn't see it, so I can't rebut any of that.
Well,
and you have a very good point. It could have been a lot smaller, but when you're young and a teenager, everything is huge. So,
Pixie says both you and I have sexy voices.
oh, nice.
Wow.
Thanks.
We're getting lots of comments tonight. Wow, that's awesome.
Are we? This is the first one I've heard. Apparently you're not sharing, Don.
No, I told you that they thought we were 30.
Oh, yeah,
in our
that's
30s.
true. Yeah.
And well, you're a love machine for the aliens. So that was a compliment, you know.
Well, you know. What do you do? I guess, I could think of worse things in life than to be an alien love machine, maybe. I don't know. Depends what your aliens look like, I guess. I don't know. So this isn't necessarily my story, but my family's. This happened in the mid-'80s, and I wasn't born yet, but I have heard this story from every member of the immediate family. This means that it's either an elaborate and well-orchestrated prank pulled by my entire family for the last 20-plus years, or they saw something. I think a little background on my family is necessary. My parents are pretty old and super religious, not the type of people who are into extraterrestrials or pranks per se. We're talking mashed potatoes suburbia folk. So, to me, it lends a little credibility to their story because they don't really have the motive to make something like this up. Anyway, on to the story. So it was a summer day in the mid-'80s, and my entire family, mom, dad, brother, and sister, had just returned home from some event. It's possibly a family reunion, but I'm not quite sure on this part. It was early evening, and my brother and sister were out riding their bicycles in the driveway and on the allotment. Allegedly, while they were riding their bikes, they saw this big ship to the south heading north and kind of freaked out and ran to get my parents. According to both of my parents, the ship slowly approached the house, and it was enormous. It was triangular in shape and had windows all along the bottom of the aircraft that you could see into. The weird part, according to my dad, was that the ship appeared to be metal, not a blimp. It did not emit any sound, which was strange due to the ship's massive size. Needless to say, after they gawked at it for a minute or so, they all kind of freaked out and hid in the basement. Nothing really happened after. I don't know what the ship was, and neither does my family. It could have been extraterrestrial, or it could have been some type of classified military ship. Feel free to form your own opinions, but I'm not sure why they would be buzzing suburban homes with top-secret military craft, though. It's a good point. I don't know either. Very strange. Very strange. But those were some great stories.
Yes, they were.
They were indeed. I don't know. It's a great sampling of a lot of different accounts of witnessing UFOs, but not a lot of being abducted, other than the ones that could be sleep paralysis or were confused with that. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that could be a lot of that's been reported with abduction cases, sleep paralysis, and things like that. But I read that one story about the choke slam, about how the person woke up at night, the TV was on static white noise, and all the lights were on, and the person went to get up and was choke slammed back onto the couch.
Oh.
I don't think that would necessarily be sleep paralysis per se, because honestly, unless you're dreaming, you wouldn't be getting up with sleep paralysis. So it could be a few different things. It could have been a poltergeist for that matter. Who knows? But sleep paralysis is a possible manifestation of an alien abduction.
Yes, and I would agree with that. I think the funny thing is though, I think that there's a real gray area between spiritual.
There's a lot of gray things in aliens.
Yeah. That was not a little gray pun, but it very well could have been really clever if I thought of it that way, but I didn't. So I can't take credit, but there is a lot of gray area, or at least a blurring between the phenomenon of a haunting versus an alien presence. And I don't know if that's by virtue of them being multidimensional, that they can exhibit a lot of the same behaviors, or people can experience a lot of the similar phenomenon because of their being interdimensional, and which would maybe mimic what a spirit's presence is like.
Right.
I don't know. Very bizarre though, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Very strange, ladies and gentlemen, but it's all fair game in the Paranormal Portal. Everything is possible. We limit nothing here. I'm going to get to some stories of abduction now, and we'll see what you guys think. A Texas-based husband and wife claim to have been abducted by aliens multiple times, including once where a fetus was stolen from Donna by the alien trespassers.
Oh, yeah.
Clayton claims that he was a child visiting a park the very first time he was abducted, and that he feels the aliens might be studying him throughout his life. I remember just floating up higher, Donna Lee recounted about her experience, and all that was around were the stars and blackness, and then I blacked out. The couple have had their memories of this event awakened by a local psychologist who, ironically, doesn't actually believe in aliens herself. They have both drawn sketches of the aliens and appeared on multiple media outlets to talk about their story, including this one on the O'Reilly Factor. And this is the synopsis of their appearance on the O'Reilly show. O'Reilly: all right, and you were abducted multiple amounts of times? And D. Lee says, yes. O'Reilly: did you ever talk about the abductees? Did you ever talk to the abductees? I mean, did they tell you where they were from or anything? No, not that I have any remembering of it all. Having the conversation, no. So they just swept you up away somewhere. Where did they put you? Different places, different times. I've had memories of being on what I consider the ship because I know it was someplace other than any place I've ever visited before. So you were in some kind of vehicle? Yes, it was a vehicle, a room. It was very cold, metal, a lot of metal. Did you see the aliens? Yes. What did they look like? What I saw on that particular visit, they were tall, slender, blonde, looked human but not human, not quite human. All right, and they didn't actually use their voices to talk. The couple say that they remained worried about being abducted against almost daily, but that they want to live their lives regardless. And so the blonde, tall humanoid look, is that the
Venusians?
Is that the Venusian or isn't the Pleiadians?
Pleiadians, yeah, they're supposed to be rather human-like.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So it could be
Well, the Nordics, I should say.
Nordics, Pleiadians,
yes.
Venusians, yeah, whatever flavor they happen to be. There seems to be possibly one or maybe several different races of alien that appear to look just or very similar to us. I know there's also a very tall version of the humanoid ones that people have observed around the Dulce base.
Dulce, yeah.
Yeah, in
New
Mexico.
That's the one that Phil Schneider
Yeah, with the Phil Schneider. Yep.
lost his fingers.
He
was supposedly the only survivor of that
encounter. Yeah. And he said that he only survived because there was a special forces guy threw him into the elevator to go back up and basically lost his life in the process.
Yeah.
But he definitely he was a very he had a pretty troubled existence after that, but
Yep.
he at least had the courage to come forward and say, look, this is what happened. So the next is the Gundaya McKay alien abduction. And in a chilling story that 3 different people were involved in, a 22-year-old named Amy was abducted right out of the window of her lounge room by some sort of flying craft. Amy's husband Keith had already gone to bed while her friend Petra stayed up to read in another room. Petra was abruptly disturbed by a blinding light coming from the lounge room and the sound of shattering glass. The rectangular beam of light was shining into the room, and according to Petra, she saw Amy being pulled out of the window by the light, still apparently asleep. Keith then woke up, and both he and Petra searched the house and surrounding area for Amy, who was nowhere to be seen. Keith eventually called the police. Amy eventually turned up miles away with strange marks on her inner thigh and bizarrely extensive body hair growth. Oh, jeez. Did you hear that, Don?
I'm sorry, no, I missed that.
So it says Amy eventually turned up miles away with strange marks on her inner thigh and bizarrely extensive body hair growth.
Huh. Nice. Disgusting, but nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know what they,
Has got nothing to do with it.
That's just strange, yeah. Huh. Next one is apparently a Russian millionaire politician. Kirsten Ilmyamizhov. I'm
Okay.
just kidding. That's me just trying to sound like I know how to speak Russian names. It looks like Ilyumzhnov, a former president of the only Buddhist political state, evidently claims he was once kidnapped by creatures not of this world. He says they abducted him right off his apartment balcony and took him to their spaceship. Yeah. I was taken from my apartment in Moscow to this spaceship, and we went to some star. After that, I asked, please bring me back, because the next day I should be back in Kamlookia. And they said, oh, no problem, Kurison, you have time. When pressed for details of the aliens themselves, he says, they are people like us. They have the same mind and same vision. I talked with them. I understand that we are not alone in the whole world. We are not unique. The ship was absolutely enormous. One of its chambers was the size of a large football pitch. We landed on one of the planets and picked up some piece of equipment, and they told me everything in detail. Allegedly, he was abducted. While he was abducted, his staff came looking for him and was unable to locate him until he inexplicably appeared in his suite hours later.
Well, now we know the Russians were meddling.
I guess so. Robert Taylor was a forestry worker in Livingston, Scotland. He was headed to work in the woods in 1979 when he turned a corner and saw a UFO parked in a field. All at once, two small spheres came from the object. They made a sound as their spikes moved toward the earth. They came to a stop beside him, grabbing his trousers, and began to drag him back to the UFO. God, it's just like livestock. The spiked objects were very similar to the UFO, only smaller. Taylor could smell a strong, sickening odor. He almost lost consciousness. When he regained consciousness, he says he lost consciousness. When he regained consciousness, the spheres were gone, but his red setter was still there. The dog was panicky, running around and barking. Taylor tried to calm him down, but found that his voice was gone. He was very weak, and when he tried to stand, he couldn't. He crawled for a time until he was able to stand again. He finally made it back to his pickup truck and tried to radio his work headquarters via his two-way radio, but still could not speak. Attempting to drive his truck back home, he got stuck in the mud, so he started a long walk of about a mile to his house. He arrived at 11:45 a.m. His wife phoned the police once he got home, remarked that he looked terrible. The police began an investigation, having no true explanation for the bizarre tracks left in the scene of the UFO. No aircraft, civilian or military, was scheduled to be in the area, according to comprehensive flight logs.
Huh.
And, of course, the next is the Travis Walton story.
Oh, boy.
Fire in the Sky, ladies and gentlemen. Good show. I liked it. Travis Walton was one of the 7 men working in a forestry team in Snowflake, Arizona. When heading home from work one night, the team spied a blindingly bright light. Thinking it was a crash plane, they drove over to the craft. What they saw, however, did not look like any plane. Walton jumped out of the truck to get a closer look at the craft. Suddenly, a bright light shot from the UFO and sent Walton floating into the UFO, while the remaining 6 crew members panicked and drove away from the scene to get help. At 7:30 p.m., one of the crew members called the police. Deputy Sheriff Chuck Ellison answered the phone. The crew member initially reported that only one of the logging crew was missing. Ellison then met the crew at a shopping center. They related the tale to him. All the men distraught, 2 of them in tears, and though he was somewhat skeptical of the fantastic account, Ellison would later reflect that if they were acting, they were awfully good at it. Mm-hmm. After an initial scan of the area showed no evidence of a UFO, the police began to suspect the men were using the story as a cover-up to the fact that they simply murdered Walton. However, over the next 2 days, all 6 loggers were subjected to intense interrogations and polygraphs, and their story seemed to hold up. And that's when Walton suddenly reappeared. Thinking he had only been gone for a few hours, Walton retold parts of the story he could. He said he was interrogated by 3 creatures with bald heads and huge eyes. He apparently encountered many different creatures on the craft who performed experiments on him. Many people were skeptical of the story, but Walton and all the other loggers maintained their stories.
Uh-huh.
Hmm?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's not one of the. That's not a story that I have misgivings about that story.
Huh. Okay.
And just the things that I've read, because around that time, there was also supposedly a contest. I guess it was like the National Enquirer or something was offering like $5,000 to a verifiable alien abduction or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And supposedly they made some money on that particular thing. Travis Walton supposedly got a $2,500 check, and then the rest was split amongst the rest of the work crew. There were 7 originally, I believe there was, and then 6 after Travis was allegedly abducted. So it's a good story, but I have misgivings on that one. That's just me, my humble opinion.
Sure. No, and you're absolutely entitled to that. I can't say either way. I just know it's a famous story, and we've certainly covered it on the show before, and I know that you have stated that before as well. So I don't know. I mean, it's possible. It could have be, or it could not be. I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air on it. I guess I don't know of any one fact that would deter me from thinking it's real, but I know that you know a lot more about it than I do, so I don't have any way to debate it. So,
I mean, it's just, look it up, make your own, that's all we tell. Well, that's all we say.
Yeah,
we don't push our views on anyone, but that's the way I see it by the research I've read. So
absolutely. And any of these, ladies and gentlemen, please make your own determinations, go out and research them. And if there's a story that you think, is BS, then, find out about it. Hell, let us know.
One of our chatters says, to be fair, I'd cash in on it too.
Yeah, that's funny because I was thinking the same thing. It's like, God, if you did get abducted and it was a pretty semi-verifiable account, I'd take a run at the money too.
He says lemons lemonade situation.
Yeah. There you go, brother. I hear you.
Yep.
I think you're right. I think I would too. It'd be like, well, you know what happened. Might as well make. I mean, of course, he's done pretty well by the story anyway, with his book and movie deal and all that stuff.
And he does continual. He's been working circuit now for decades. As a matter of fact, I saw him in Sedonia. No, I didn't see him. I saw his last Sedonia visit, Arizona visit when. I think it was 2017, just last year. Because I think I posted it right after I started working on the show with you.
Oh, so, cool. Yeah, I'm sure. And so many people that have had encounters will do that. They'll do runs on the whole network of events, and of course there are conferences all over the place where MUFON and other groups that have conferences, and the same is true for the Bigfoot world.
Yeah, absolutely.
People run the circuits like Cliff Barrickman from Finding Bigfoot. He does the circuit, and I believe so does Bobo, I think, but I might be wrong. But I know that they I guess it's a living.
No, I mean, do what you love. I mean, if you can make money at what you have a passion for, do it. Mm-hmm. That's why we're working so hard to build the portal. That's
right. And ladies and gentlemen, as a side note, please, help us any way you can. You guys have done an amazing job already of spreading the word and letting people know, that we're here. And I've gotten messages that people have put up Twitter postings about the Paranormal Portal.
That's awesome.
I know. It was just like, wow, really? I was totally floored. I was like, yes, thank you so much. And it's really showing because the numbers grow. And I know that a lot of people do the old sub for sub thing. And I understand the motivation to get the numbers because it certainly makes it easier to, do things with the channel when you have the numbers to back up what you're doing. But I would so much rather that this grew in a organic way with real grassroots. Hey, I check out the show. It's really cool. I really enjoy it. You guys should check it out too, because then I know that the people showing up, when I see those numbers go up, it's people that want to be there. Yep. They're not people that are just subbing because I, said, hey, sub for sub, and, can get a few thousand people to do it. And then I got to go around and click a few thousand as well. So I'd rather that the crowds that we have are people that are actually interested in it, because, numbers are one thing, but, when you've got a whole following of people that are really involved in what you're doing and adding, you guys add so much to the show, like absolutely. With the phone calls, with the emails, with, your involvement, your comments in the chats are all a part of the show and what make this a great experience. So Yeah, I mean, but anything you can do, if you can, spread the word.
Pass this around like your favorite
Throw-
bad penny.
throw it around like a football.
Jeez.
I don't know, but it's just great that you guys have done so much, and thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And if you can continue, that's awesome. If you've done what you can, and that's all, then fantastic as well. Thank you, and we love you all. But I got another one here.
Go for it.
It's the Linda Napolitano, originally aliased as Linda Corteil. Triggered one of the most well-documented UFO abduction cases when she claimed to have been kidnapped out the window of her Manhattan apartment building by a flying saucer. Linda describes her time with the aliens. I'm standing up on nothing, and they take me out all the way up, way above the building. Oh, I hope I don't fall. The UFO opens up almost like a clam, and then I'm inside. I see benches similar to regular benches, and they're bringing me down a hallway. Doors open like sliding doors. Inside all these lights and buttons with a big long table. I don't want to get up on the table. They get me on the table anyway. They start saying things to me and I'm yelling. I can still yell. One of them says something that sounds like Nabieg. And I think they are trying to tell me to be quiet because he put a hand over my mouth. Her abduction story has been corroborated by 2 United Nations bodyguards who claim to have seen exactly the scene that Linda describes. There was an oval-shaped object hovering over the top of the apartment building 2 or 3 blocks up from where we sat. We didn't know where it came from. It happened too fast. Its lights turned from bright reddish-orange to whitish-blue coming out of the bottom. Green lights rotated around the edge of the saucer. A little girl or woman wearing a white gown sailed out of the window in a fetal position and then stood in midair on this beam of light. I could see 3 of the ugliest creatures I've ever seen, and I don't know what they were. They weren't human. Their heads were out of proportion, very large heads with no hair. Those buggers were escorting her into the craft. My partner screamed, "We have to go get them." We tried to get out of the car, but couldn't. After the woman was escorted in, the oval turned reddish-orange again and whisked off. Years later, in 2001, a photo was taken at the apartment complex, and it appears to show a orb or a craft of some kind up in the sky. And that's here as well. But that one, I've heard that one documented a few times, and I think it's very interesting, and the fact that it is witnessed by other people that have come forward. I don't know if anybody else saw it or not, but you got to believe it was in Manhattan that probably a ton of people saw it. But
you would think. You would think.
I'm not getting involved in that. Don't tell the boss.
Don't tell the boss. He won't let us come out no more.
I'm just wanting to eat my cannoli,
Cannoli. Oh, great. Yes.
All right.
Cannolis. I love cannolis.
All right, let's talk about the Men in Black.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Richardson was supposedly driving through Toledo, Ohio, when he drove into a strange object, which he claimed vanished the minute that he stepped out to inspect it. Remaining next to his tire, however, was a shard of metal that appeared to have been part of the mysterious object. Richardson took the metal and continued his drive home. 3 days later, 2 men in jet black suits and black sunglasses knocked on Richardson's door, and they immediately demanded the piece of metal. Richardson told them that he had sent it off to a lab for analysis, and they ordered him to get it back, saying that his wife would be in grave peril if he didn't. Richardson ordered them to leave and never saw them again. Aha, well, that's a very short account.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And never seeing him again, and then not following up on what happened with the wife, or if he even... So
it was just a bunch of threats, and then they...
Yeah, exactly, because they never came back, because it's give it to us or else.
Right.
And he never gave it to him as far as we know.
Yeah, he says he never saw him again. Told him to leave his property. Get the hell out of here.
Get off my lawn.
Before I get my Rottweiler.
I got me a shotgun soon right here.
My 2 friends, Smith and Wesson, said you're trespassing.
And so did Jose Cuervo. Oh, boy. Okay, now we're really off subject.
Yeah, we don't take long to spiral down a whole different tube of manic storylines. But it's the beauty of the portal, ladies and gentlemen. We just wing it.
We have no idea what we're doing. No, I'm just kidding. We kind of have an idea. We're getting an idea, right, Don?
We're getting better at having an idea.
We're getting better at looking like we know what the hell we're doing, so we got that going for us. And you guys are here, which makes it always a better thing, so we appreciate that. Now, of course, comes the Betty and Barney Hill.
Ooh.
One of the most, and probably the story that brought the idea of abduction into our modern consciousness.
Absolutely.
This was the one account that still stands up, and the things that came out of this. Well, I'll read it first, and then Don and I will discuss, but there's some really cool parts of this story that are pretty amazing.
Huh, okay.
Perhaps one of the best-known cases of UFO lore is Betty and Barney Hill, which were allegedly abducted by aliens in 1961. It all started when they were driving back home from a vacation in Canada, and they saw something they could not explain. At about 10:15 p.m., 3 miles south of the city of Lancaster, Barney noticed that what appeared to be a bright star or planet, which seemed to move erratically. Barney pointed this out to Betty, and they both began to keep track of the object. The couple began to believe that they were watching a plane appear and disappear, as the movement of their vehicle caused the trees to come and go in, obstructing their view. Later, Barney would state that he tried to convince himself that the object was a plane, but that Betty thought it had to be something else, an unidentified craft of some kind. As the two continued to the flume just north of North Woodstock, the object appeared to move in an odd way. As they reached Indian Head, Barney actually stopped the car to have a look at the object with his binoculars. He saw multicolored lights and rows of windows on a flat-shaped object, which now seemed to be moving towards him. As the object moved to within a few hundred feet of him, he could see occupants inside. Frightened, he ran back to his car where Betty waited. They climbed inside and sped away. Soon, 2 hours of their lives would vanish into oblivion. After resuming their journey home, they were not able to see the strange craft anymore. Oddly, though, they heard a beeping sound. Then they heard the beeping sound a second time and noticed that they were suddenly 35 miles further down the road than a minute or two ago. They were now in Ashla. I guess, I don't know what Ashla is, but that's a place away from where they were. Once they get back home, however, the strange occurrences didn't stop. Betty forcefully insisted that their luggage be kept near the back door. Their dress shoes were scuffed and scraped, and both of their watches were broken, never to work again. But it isn't over yet. Betty began having vivid dreams about the craft and strange people in it. In the dreams, Betty, Barney, and the men walked up a ramp into the disc-shaped craft of metallic appearance. Once inside, Barney and Betty were separated. She protested and was told by a man she called the leader that if she and Barney were examined together, it would take much longer to conduct the exams. She and Barney were then taken into separate rooms. Betty then dreamt that a new man, similar to the others, entered to conduct her exam with the leader. Betty called this new man the examiner and said he had a pleasant, calm manner. Though the leader and the examiner spoke to her in English, the examiner's command of the language seemed imperfect, and she had difficulty understanding him. According to Betty, she was then subjected to an examination. Afterwards, she spoke to the leader. The leader told Betty that she could keep a book that she found, but later insisted that he take it back, saying that the others wanted to wipe her mind completely. Betty told the leader that no matter what he did, she would remember the events. And I guess she did. Very cool.
Yeah, that's actually a really great story. You know, so part of that book thing is, I guess the leader told her she could keep the book, but the other aliens said no, they can't keep it. So that started a little tussle there. But also it talks about them being, you know what YouTube just told me? YouTube just told me you've been sending too many messages. Take a break.
Yeah, you can't keep sending too many. It'll do that.
That's weird. I've never had that happen before.
You've been typing a lot.
Dang them. Dang them.
You've got to space it out.
You've got to space out. But they said that story says that they were escorted. Well, according to the Betty statements, that she fought. She put up a hell of a fight, is what she said.
Oh, sure.
Because they didn't talk about the dress either. The dress was torn during that bit of a struggle, and also the dress was. They had problems taking the dress off her because they couldn't work the zipper, as the story goes.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was some damage in the zipper area and things like that. So
And a weird pigment was found on there as
that's
well, right?
It was a pink pigment. Yeah,
A pink pigment, and that pigment has been tested a few times, and I don't know if anything new and exciting has come out about that.
Well, funny that you mentioned that.
Well, do tell.
Well, let's see. The newest thing I can find on it is from Phyllis Budinger. These comments were made in October of 2016, so a year and a half ago. It says, the analysis of the dress Betty Hill wore during the abduction is one of the most fascinating of my collection. This was literally a new dress that was reduced to rags as a result of the bizarre event. The analysis did not confirm alien presence, but it did support her story in the event. In no way did it prove evidence in which would refute her account of the incident. DNA analysis was done after the report was written and included after this person's, Phyllis Budinger's, analytical report. So let's skip the synopsis because, well, let's cover a couple things real quick in this synopsis. They stopped a second time at the Old Man of the Mountain in Francois Notch, and Betty and Barney looked at the object through binoculars, observing a spinning, flattened disc that appeared to be lit only on one side. A blue fluorescent glow shined in the windows. The object appeared to be the size of a four-engine aircraft. Several figures dressed in shiny black uniforms. Somehow not human. They reported, let's see here. Let's get to a part. When they arrived home, missing time was noted, but they were not fully aware of it, not fully aware that it amounted to 2 full hours until November. So this happened in September, and then they realized that it was the 2 full hours that they were missing later on.
Oh.
They both felt clammy and dirty, and Barney's lower abdomen was bothering him. And if you remember correctly, I believe he died of some kind of something in his abdomen.
Like stomach cancer or something like that?
Something like that. I may be incorrect. I'm just, my recall might not be right. Their wristwatches had quit working, and there were unexplained shining marks on their car that correspond to the area of their vehicle where the buzzing sounds originated. When they placed a compass over these spots, it would whirl but stabilize in other areas of the vehicle. So it would act magnetized. Yeah. Both Barney and Betty sought therapy through hypnosis. Yet the hypnosis suggested that both Barney and Betty had been abducted and subjected to physical examinations.
Wow.
So the history of the dress. Oh, here. This is where Betty recalls that 2 beings were on each side of her and escorted her to the craft with their hands under her armpit. Betty related that she put up a hell of a fight before she crossed the threshold of the craft. I asked whether she hit with her hands. She said, no, I kicked like hell because my arms were restricted. The dress obviously suffered stresses. While on the craft, she remembers that halfway through the physical examination, they decided to remove the dress. They had difficulties with the zipper. Once removed, the dress ended up on the floor in a heap. When I arrived home that morning, I put the dress folded in the bottom of my closet where it remained for several days. When I removed it, it was covered with a pink powder. So I threw it in the trash, but quickly changed my mind. I decided to put it outdoor in the sun. The powder blew away, but leaving stains. The pink stains were most prominent where aliens had purportedly touched the dress. Betty did not notice any odor emanating from the dress. Other damage to the dress was also noted. The lining on the right side of the dress was torn from the waist to the hem, and the top of the zipper was ripped. Because of the damage to the dress, it could not be worn again. The dress hung in a hanger in Betty's closet for 4 years. It had not been enclosed in a protective bag. No disinfectants, moth repellents, or other chemicals were ever sprayed in the closet. Now, that's a subjective thing. That's to her recollection. Occasionally, the dress would be taken out and shown to visitors. Barney's suit was immediately cleaned after the event, so it wasn't able to develop a pink powder or discolor, and there was no damage to his clothing. So there you go. Basically, it says there's DNA from assorted sources such as soil bacteria, human, spider, and possibly mouse and bovine. There's no evidence for unidentified DNA, which I had hoped for. If alien DNA were present, it would not match up to anything in our DNA banks because there would be no references. Kind of like the Star Child DNA. I don't believe the original deposited substance on the dress directly caused the discoloration of pink. Betty found the discoloration days later when she took the dress out of the closet. The substance on the dress was probably moist, so the moisture was not allowed to dissipate because the dress was folded. This moist substance, probably slightly acidic, served as a nutrient for a natural biological, like mildew. This grew. Days later, the dress finally dried and the pink powdery residue from the growth remained.
Wow.
The dress interior lining being drier probably suffered the most minimal effects. So there was nothing found alien on the dress itself. There is one time that we know that the dress was on the ground. This was when the dress was removed from Betty in the craft and thrown and crumpled onto the floor. Clearly, some of this bacteria could easily have been from soil or dirt on the floor brought in on worn footwear by Betty and the aliens. The abduction took place on a dirt road. It's now since been paved. So there you go. No alien DNA, no really strange DNA. However, it does speak to the validation of there being some kind of event as the story has been told.
Very cool. Now,
Let's say that.
there was also, she apparently had drew a star chart as was related to her.
Right.
That apparently the aliens had communicated to her that this cluster of stars and showed her the most traveled routes where, lots of travel goes on between star systems,
Right.
and then some where hardly anything goes to. And that was basically shelved forever until somebody finally realized, and we became able to see it ourselves with things like the Hubble Deep Space Telescope, that she, wasn't it Zeta Reticuli?
Zeta Reticuli, yeah.
She drew an accurate map of Zeta Reticuli, which was not discovered anywhere near that time. In fact, it'd be several decades later that we would become aware of it with the use of the Hubble Space Telescope.
Right.
So she drew a map and actually had lines going, oh, they usually use this one and this one, but they don't go here, and these are the trade routes, and it's like, wow. So, ladies and gentlemen, we do have an actual accounting of what happens in the Zeta Reticuli cluster of stars. Now that, to me, lends a whole different level of credibility to their account as well.
True enough, and a lot of people also kind of along those lines, people accuse her of planting this evidence to foil certain types of tests and things like that. But the problem is that in the 60s, there was no such thing as DNA. There was no such thing as blood typing had just really started in full force. Fingerprinting was just getting started. So how could somebody plant evidence or make evidence appear to not be what it is for a test that hasn't even been around yet? DNA testing didn't start until late 70s, maybe early 80s, and fingerprinting was only in the 70s. As a matter of fact, I think Catch Me If You Can, that guy, the guy who wrote all those checks back in the 50s and 60s, had something to do with fingerprinting, I believe. Now, I may be very wrong on that, but that's what I remember. So, these people who have tried to discredit that particular, everything in that, they really go quite far in their accusations. So, but the star map wasn't even noticed. even after we found out about Zeta Reticula and that cluster, and Prometheus also, because that map also had pieces of the Prometheus cluster in it as well.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was very well detailed. As a matter of fact, all you got to do is just Google Betty Hill star map, and it'll bring up all kinds of images for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of an interesting thing. So definitely look that up.
Very cool. Very cool. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. But that's about the extent of everything I had pulled up for the show. So what do you got? Anything else, Don?
Oh, well, yeah. Did you want me to go ahead and cover how what is it? 50, what is it? 50 ways to know you've been abducted?
Please do. And ladies and gentlemen, this is actually when Don took the helm for one of the shows when I was sick. He covered this, but I thought it'd be really cool information to repeat because I'm here and because I thought it was a really cool closure to the show that he did. So I asked him if he'd please repeat that list. So please, sir, take it away.
Absolutely.
I'll go to 100% Don Vision here.
Scary, huh? All right. So
Brought to you in Beard Vision.
Beard Vision. Gosh, I can't wait for it to grow back out. Remember, everybody, it used to be like way down to here. It was big. It was bushy. It was
You were all
nice.
set for your ZZ Top tryout.
Well, I was reaching for wizard status, I was almost there.
It's not the length of the beard, it's the quality of the
Quality
braids.
of the weave. Yeah, exactly. This is a list of 50 common indicators shared by most abductees. It's based on known research on the subject and this particular person's personal findings. This is Melinda Leslie, an abduction researcher. Of course, there may be other explanations for some of these occurrences, and this is in no way an absolute means of knowing if you're an abductee. If you or someone you know does fit any of these traits listed here, please seek the help of a qualified researcher or therapist. This list is in no particular order. So it starts out with having had missing or lost time of any length, especially an hour or more. Having unusual scars or marks with no possible explanation of how you received them, especially if you've had an emotional reaction to them, i.e. small scoop indentions, straight line scars in the roof of your mouth, in the nose, behind or in the ear, or the genitals. Have seen balls of lights or flashing lights in your home or other locations. Having a memory of flying through the air, which could not be a dream. Have a marker memory that will not go away, i.e. alien face, examination needle, table, strange baby. And they literally mean baby, like child. So if you've ever had a strange baby, you may have been.
Wow.
It may be a hybrid.
Okay.
I love going over this list with you here because you weren't here the first time. So.
No, I missed that.
Have seen beams of light outside your home or come into your home through a window.
Mm-hmm.
Have had vivid dreams of aliens or UFOs. Have had numerous UFO sightings in your life. For women only, have had a false pregnancy or missing fetus.
Ooh.
Pregnant and then not. So that harkens back to the having the strange baby. Have awoken in another place than where you went to sleep. That's just me being drunk. Or don't remember even going to sleep. For example, lying upside down in the bed or a car. And what they mean by upside down is different than, laying your head at the foot of the bed instead of the top of the bed.
Oh.
Like I said, that's just me when I'm passed out. Have had a dream of eyes, such as animal eyes, like owl or deer. Remember seeing an animal looking at you, also applicable if you have a fear of eyes. Have awoken in the middle of the night startled. Okay.
I call that Wednesday.
Have a strong reaction to pictures of aliens, either an adverse or being, or either an aversion or being drawn to that picture. Having unusual fears or phobias, for example, heights, snakes, spiders, large insects, certain sounds, bright lights, your personal security, or being alone. Now, wait a minute. Unusual phobias. So now it's unusual to have a phobia of heights, snakes, and spiders, and large insects. Now, I could understand certain sounds, like loud or frightening sounds. Bright lights, not so much. Personal security, no, I'm pretty good with that. Or being alone, no, I'm even better with that. But, I mean, how can those be unusual fears or phobias? I would think, maybe vertigo, which is more intense fear of heights, spinning, things like that. I would think those would be more applicable than a fear of snakes and spiders, except when you consider reptilians. Have experienced self-esteem problems. Now, okay, that's just a side effect. Have awoken with marks, burns, or bruises with no explanation of how you received them. Have had someone who claims to have witnessed a ship or alien near you or has witnessed that you have been missing. Okay. Have had at any time blood or unusual stains on sheets or pillows with no explanation of how it got there. And that's more referring to implantations.
Right. No, I
Yeah.
the mental image.
Yeah, sure.
There's so many things I could go to there.
Let's just leave that one alone.
For the sake of it being a family show,
Exactly.
I'll abstain.
Okay. Have an interest in the subject of UFOs or aliens or an extreme aversion to the subject. Have been compelled to drive or walk to an out-of-the-way place or an unknown area. Have the feeling of being watched all the time, especially at night. Have had dreams of passing through closed windows or solid walls. Well, that harkens back to naked singularity and ectoplasmic goo.
Yeah.
Have seen strange fog or haze that should not be there. Have heard strange humming or pulsing sounds you could not identify the source. Explosive head syndrome. Have had unusual nosebleeds or woken up with a heavy nosebleed. Have awoken with soreness in your genitals, which cannot be explained.
As opposed to the explainable type.
I just kind of emphasized where I thought it was necessary. Have had back or neck problems, T3 vertebrae out often, or awoken with an unusual stiffness in any part of your body.
Wow.
Probing anybody? Have sinusitis or nasal problems. Have had electronics around you go haywire or oddly malfunction with no explanation. Now that just has to do with magnetic pulses. I don't necessarily believe that one is alien related. I know a lot of people who can't wear watches.
Oh yeah.
So it's not explained. That's not a good one. Have seen a hooded figure in or near your home, especially next to your bed. Have had frequent or sporadic ringing in your ears, especially in one ear. Have a fear of doctors and tend to avoid medical treatment. Once again, that's not one of those I'd associate.
No, I wouldn't either.
Have insomnia or sleep disorders. Well, I'm an insomniac, so. Have had dreams of doctors or medical procedures. Have frequent or sporadic headaches, especially in the sinus behind one eye or in one ear. Have the feeling that you're going crazy even thinking about these sorts of things.
You might be an abductee if
you've had paranormal or psychic experiences or have these abilities. So there you go.
Geez.
So maybe Deb was
Deb.
Or psychic, yeah.
We'll just call her Star Lady.
Well, we'll have to ask her. And it's only because of this list.
Absolutely.
Have been prone to compulsive or addictive behavior, may cause gambling. You're not laughing in the right spots. May cause gambling. Restless leg syndrome.
Sorry, I'll work on my timing. Comedy's all about timing, after all.
Have been prone to compulsive or addictive behavior. Have channeled telepathic messages from extraterrestrials.
Oh, Jesus.
Now, there was an abduction story I read on one of our that talked about that particular thing.
I know.
Have been afraid of your closet now or as a child.
Okay.
Have had sexual or relationship problems. have to sleep against the wall or have your bed against the wall. Have a difficult time trusting others, especially authority figures. I call that ODD, oppositional defiance disorder.
Or anarchist.
Which is odd in and of itself. See what I did there? Oh, blah, blah, blah. Have a sensitivity toward certain lights or sounds. Have had dreams of destruction or catastrophe.
Jesus.
Okay. Almost there. Have the feeling that you are not supposed to talk about these things or that you should not talk about them. Them.
Sure.
Have tried to resolve these types of problems with little or no success. You fit many of these traits, but can't remember anything about an abduction. Well, there you go. That's the whole list.
That's the indicators right there, ladies and gentlemen. So if you fit any of those, you might have been abducted.
You might be an abductee.
But I think more than one is probably going to be important. Because I fit about 5 of those, or 10 of them anyway, as you're going through. I was like, ooh, that's me.
Yeah,
ooh,
definitely.
I get ringing in my ear.
Yeah.
I get those headaches behind my eye. It's like, shoot. They did probe me.
I was wondering where that awful ache came from.
Oh, man. No.
Oh, boy.
Like I said, I have witnessed it, but I don't know of anything. And I was awake for a few hours after it, just trying to process it. But
Right.
I don't have any lost time or anything like that. It's just I saw it, and I'm sure they saw me, and the end.
The end, yeah.
like a third grader's book report. The end.
The end. Finale.
Yeah, exactly.
Complete. Done.
Done. Finished.
There
The
you go.
end.
The end.
It's like-
Never to be revisited.
It's funny when you know what I'm talking about, where kids would write the end, like, oh, that's why it stopped, because that's the end. I don't know, just quirky things. Welcome to the world inside of my head, ladies and gentlemen, where it's a frightening and scary place. But
Yes, it is.
there's
We're frightened and scared of it as well.
wonderful, wonderful. But you are tuning in, so you must like some of it anyway.
Absolutely.
So if you've had any of those happen, or if you've anything other than that, please let us know. You can always email the show, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com, if you've got an experience of your own you'd like to share. And sometimes we're tongue-in-cheek, but I honestly, if you write in about an experience, we're going to give it, obviously a very, very serious consideration. We sometimes lampoon stuff on the show, but we certainly wouldn't ever tear any of you down for reaching out and talking to us.
Absolutely not, yeah.
So don't worry about that. I mean, I'm just always honored when you guys share your experiences with me, and of course trust me to relay those to the show, or just me personally, whatever you choose. But I just hope none of you ever think, I'd write this in, but God, I don't want him to say something funny about it. No, we'd never do that to you.
Absolutely not.
This is just us having fun with a bunch of anonymous stories that we stumble across out on the internets,
The
so
interwebs.
the interwebs.
But
And-
definitely, yeah, don't be afraid to send in those stories. We absolutely love them, and it adds to the show. And
It really does,
It's
yeah.
just awesome. And like Brent always says, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be identified. You could say, "Hey, keep my name anonymous."
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely fine with us. And,
Even if you've just got silly short stories, like, geez, I came out and the cupboard door opened. It's like, those may seem like it's not worth writing down, but honest to God, it is. Those are the kind of things I just find cool as hell. So it doesn't have to be these astronomical, like Lucas film type of stories. Just
we don't have to go ET on the whole thing.
right,
yeah.
exactly. We don't need the close encounters. We just, in terms of ghosts, it can be just like, geez, my cat does this weird thing always in this part of the house, and it just really freaks me out. Well, tell me about it. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear what you've got going on, and if you want to share it, I'd love to share it. But if you don't want to share it, I'd just like to listen. This is my my big passion, my big interest in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's about it for tonight, huh, Don?
It is getting on to 9:30, and glad to see Regula joined us a bit ago. So
Regula's here,
she
and-
got some listening in. That's
and
nice.
Who else?
Oh,
We got an ancient esoteric knowledge.
that's
and-
Oro.
That's who?
Oro. I can never.
Orochimaru?
Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
okay. Sorry, man. I can't remember everybody's names.
That's okay. He had to remind me too.
Well, it's my dyslexia. Honest to God, I do have a dyslexia when it comes to names. I mean, I'll never forget a face, but names are really tough for me. So sorry, Oro, man. I didn't mean to not know who you were, but now I know who you are, and thanks for coming in, of course. And anybody else that come in, please, let us know, and we'll always give you a shout out here on the portal because you guys make this all amazing.
Oh, there's Tanner too. Tanner walked in too. So yeah, Tanner's here.
Dude,
yeah,
he better have been here and just quiet, or else there's going to be penalties. No, just kidding.
Oh no. Ken said Betty's dress is in the museum next to Monica Lewinsky's.
Yeah, I saw that, but God, it might be. I don't know. I don't know what museum this is, but I think it is. I think her dress is literally on display somewhere. Betty's dress, I think.
I think the other one is too.
I think it probably is. I don't know. I guess I don't know why the hell anybody saved Monica Lewinsky's dress.
Oh,
Creepy. Party of two.
With a cigar.
Yeah. Oh. Just really.
It's on the menu.
I did not have relations with that woman.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
But this is the portal. We are absolutely thrilled you were here. Hope you enjoyed it. It's always been a pleasure talking to you guys, and it's always a pleasure to see you guys in the chat room, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. And please spread the word about the portal. And remember, Friday night, Deb Varner's joining us to do psychic call-in readings for callers to the show, and the call-in number will work on Friday. On Saturday, we will have the Bear, Jim King, Bigfoot researcher extraordinaire, here on the show as well. So it's got a full plate coming up this weekend, but don't miss either of them because there should be amazing shows. And definitely call in and talk to Deb. It's great having her on, but I know she's really trying to beat her record of how many calls she gets to in the show. So, and
I think we're up to like 8.
8, I think, right now is the most calls. I mean, some of the readings take longer than others.
True.
But if you do call in, if there's silence, don't get stressed. It's just her process.
Hey, I was wondering if maybe, we'll talk about that off camera.
All right.
Because I just had a thought. But anyhow.
All right. Well, I can't wait to hear it. But anyway, guys, love you bunches. Hope you're having a great week. And we will see you in a couple nights here on the portal. And we'll be on TFR, iHeart, and tune in and TalkStream. And here on YouTube.
There you go.
So love you bunches. Like, subscribe. Make sure to click that like button, guys. Click the like button. It's important. It makes the video more compelling to the YouTubers.
Yes, it does.
Well, they promote the videos more. Depending on more likes equals more promoting. And so the more they promote us, the better it gets.
The better our standings.
All right. Love you all bunches. Be nice. Be kind to each other. Be well. And sending you all my love, and we'll see you in a couple nights. I still have on Don Vision.
I know, yeah.
It was all one big Don blowing a kiss.
Yeah.
You really love me. No.
You love me.
Was that for me, Don, or was that for everyone else? Where are we going here?
That was for everybody else. You just happen to be looking
floozy.
At it. Yes. Kind of like a flippy flapper from the 20s, which, by the way, we talked about in the chat room today.
All right. Well, we got that going for us. So.
Exactly.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's about it for us tonight. But love y'all. Be good, be kind, and make sure to spread the word. The portal is growing.
It is.
So thank you, bunch, and we will see you in a couple nights, as I said before. And we outie.
See ya.
See ya.
Good evening.